Doge and Elon Musk is literally the number one thing that the Trump voters want to see full force every single minute of the day, practically. I think I'm getting over 5 tweets per minute because I'm following this. My brain is fried and I want to break down what's going on. It's literally like Christmas every single day, all day. The number one thing that I never dreamed would ever happen in a million years is to actually see transparency of where our tax dollars are going exactly. To see everything exposed, the corruption is mind-blowing. It's otherworldly. And then to see, we know the schemes of the Marxist terrorist organizations, aka the news, the powers that be, and what they're trying to do, the way they psyop. And so they're psyoping, freaking out, riots. People are saying, like all the senators, the people that are being exposed, they don't want it exposed. They don't want the American taxpayers to get what we voted for, which is literally a big part of what we voted for, was Elon Musk getting in there and exposing and cleaning up all the mind-blowing, insane government waste that's on a whole different level than what we could have even imagined. Like 99% of government expenditure is waste, or maybe more. That's probably generous. 99.9%, really, or more, even than that. It's like absolute insanity what's going on. And it's the most amazing dream come true to actually see exposed where our tax dollars are going, all the corruption, things like our tax dollars literally in business funding with cartels, human sex trafficking, funding overthrows of regimes. And that's just keeps coming out more and more and more and more and more and more whistleblowers. It's just boom, boom, boom. It's just all day long. Another whistleblower, another whistleblower, another whistleblower. And then you just see, and then all these people coming out of the woodworks everywhere that have been speaking about this for years that I had no idea. I never had even heard of, or at least maybe it was subconscious that I had heard of USAID and didn't even know what I was hearing. People just coming out of the woodworks, calling it out. People who know, who have in-depths of research, and it's just person after person. We had Ron Paul come out and make a real big statement. It's just everywhere. And then seeing a lot of old Senate hearings where senators and even House of Representatives are asking for documents, asking for things audited, asking for transparency, and then literally not getting the documents and then being called out from the Senate floor on it, and then still nothing happens. So nothing happens. How do you actually get in there and fix all this? It's such a insane web of just evil. So combined with the NGOs, non-governmental organizations that is actually tied in. Okay, like we saw the other day, there's tens of thousands of NGOs, and just one NGO will have tens of thousands of shell companies where they launder money and do this and make it impossible to be traced. And so what we have is Elon Musk putting in these absolute prodigy brainiacs, even as young as 18 years old, which I follow on Twitter, and they're hard to find because it's like they're being hunted, multiple like proof and evidence of them, like through Reddit and different places, for them to be assassinated. So we have the deep state, the corrupt, shady senators and different politicians out there freaking out, just absolutely losing their mind everywhere. I'm sure we've seen it. Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, just on and on and on. AOC even. And because they know they're getting exposed. They don't want transparency. They don't want the taxpayers They don't want transparency. They don't want us to know what's actually going on. Okay. And literally their arguments are our same exact arguments. We did not vote for USAID. We want them out. That's why we voted for Trump. And that's why we want Elon Musk in there. But they're playing on this narrative that Elon Musk is literally overthrowing the government. Nope. Sorry. No, he's not. Yep. He's kicking. Did we vote for the bureaucrats that are currently in USAID, like the most corrupt bureaucratic fourth branch of the government I've ever even imagined existing? Literally beyond imagination, that funded the Wuhan labs that created COVID, that funded the very scientist who was ground zero number one with COVID, which actually it's coming out. We funded COVID out of North Carolina. Actually, all is being revealed. All is being made known. But here's what's happening is that there's literally like tens of millions of documents of exposing all this and all the money laundering and shell companies and exposure. And what these guys are doing is literally creating their own AI. They're creating their own programs on how to organize this and shuffle it, where it looks like a molecule, inside of a molecule cell from afar. And then as you zoom in, because there's hundreds of thousands, even millions of NGOs and organizations where this money gets filtered through. Okay. And they're able, as you zoom in, you can see how all the organizations connect, which, by the way, 97% of them are Democrats. Okay. Now there's definitely some big concern with Republican politician corruption as well. And that's where it's a little more sinister, because they're just lying. I mean, both sides are just absolutely bold-faced lying about everything. Everything's just being exposed where we can just see it. And then, I mean, it's like the average person, I hope, is opening their eyes and seeing how these politicians are freaking out. And then if you just take 5 seconds to look into it a little bit and actually see what's going on, everything that Elon's doing is exactly what he said he was going to do the whole time. It's exactly why we voted for Trump. It's exactly what we want. But they're saying we didn't vote for Musk. We didn't, all these different arguments. And so what's coming out and being exposed is beyond belief. So today, Senator John Kennedy dropped the hammer. It was phenomenal. And he goes through some of the waste that's being reviewed. It's being audited. All this is being cross-checked and triple-checked. And I can't wait until we can just kind of lay out and present literally the full laundry list of the fraud and waste. Just evil to the core, beyond imagination, the fraud and waste that our politicians do not want exposed. They don't want transparency. They don't want anybody to know what's going on. Okay, so let's play this. I'm going to play it at 1.5x speed. Okay.
In dog years, that's 56 years. And it feels like 56 years.
I've learned hilarious.
Met a lot of interesting people.
He is hilarious. He is just cracking me up. And Senator John Kennedy is really just proving himself to be legit, for real.
Before I got here, everybody told me about the Washington bubble. And I said, how serious could they be? Well, it's true. There is a Washington bubble. This place is different. It's in its own way, sometimes disappointing, sometimes refreshing. It is deeply weird. For one thing, common sense is illegal in Washington. It's illegal. For another thing,
common sense is illegal in Washington.
I've discovered that this is a town of very frustrated ex-class presidents. And there's a Washington way of doing things. And when things aren't done that way, when somebody challenges the status quo, many, not all, but many of these frustrated ex-class presidents in Washington, on the Hill and otherwise, they get excited, not in a good way. They can't get their mind around doing anything other than the Washington way. They, some of them, particularly in the media, they go almost catatonic, or the exact opposite. They foam at the mouth, and they really get upset. They could make a Valium nervous. It's like the world, we're not doing things the way we've always done them, and the world's going to spin off its axis. I want to try to put in perspective what many of my Democratic friends have been talking about today. They're very, very, very upset at President Trump. And they're very, very, very upset at Elon Musk. President Trump ran for president on a number of issues. One of the issues he ran on, he said it almost every day. He said, if you elect me president, I'm going to go through the entire budget and review all the spending, line by line. If I heard him say that once, I heard him say it 1,000 times. And that's what he's been doing. He went out.
He's gonna reveal some of these crazy expenditures, and I'm trying to figure out how to kind of document this where I can just present it to everybody and like for just 30 minutes straight and just like literally read down the list. Because of course we've heard the $50 million for condoms in Gaza. We've heard, but I just want to have it all there because it's so overwhelming. Okay.
Out and appointed through an executive order, Elon Musk, who some people like him, some don't, but he's not a dummy. He's a very successful business person. He's got a top secret security clearance. President Trump issued an executive order, and he turned to Mr. Musk, and he said, Mr. Musk, I want you to do for me what I said I was going to do in the election. I want you to go through all the spending, line by line.
Line by line.
Now, let me ask you something, Mr. President.
I mean, isn't that like a dream come true? Never thought it was possible. This is like the biggest thing that Trump's doing. I know and Trump's doing so much. Our heads are spinning. He's a Tasmanian devil. Like today, for example, he signed one of the most obvious ones of all time is we should not have men competing in women's sports. And the fact that he even had to do that is alarming. Letting the J6 hoax prisoners out. He's going to deal with these wars. What we can talk a little bit about later. I'll talk a little bit about what Trump's doing in the Middle East with Gaza and how people are just, it's kind of bizarre, all the response to that. And so I would say nobody knows what the hell's going on. Just shut the hell up and just let Trump do what he's going to do because you don't have a clue what's going on. So let's just not give our bias. Now, if you want to just say, I don't know what's going on, but I think this is happening, that's fine. My take is that Trump's just working his magic, going to work it one way or another. It's going to work out because that's his track record. Not that bad things can't happen, but bad thing like it's already peak badness out there. So just to be clear, it's peak badness. So that situation can't get any worse, really, honestly. So, but we're hoping he can create world peace and these wars, letting out the J6 hoax, doing things like getting rid of the Department of Education, which is also a tyrannical oligarchy, evil, money laundering fraud of a Department of Education. Also, by the way, that's been like 2 decades. We've been crying out for that because it's pure corruption. It doesn't care about educating our children. So dream come true. Just it's one thing after another, after another, after another. But more than all of these things that we love seeing, by the way, we love seeing all this, lowering taxes, bringing businesses back here in the States and just a thriving economy. It's great. All this and that. Nothing is more just mind-blowing and huge. And also freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is right there at the top. Okay. But nothing more than this, that weeding out all the corruption in our government, just combing through every single thing line by line is literally the most dynamic thing Trump can possibly do. And the hardest thing because it's intentionally that way. They've made it to cover up all their fraud and all the corruption in the government. They've made it that way where it's essentially they thought it would be impossible to actually unravel this insanity. Okay. And so, but it's actually happening in real time all throughout the day, all day, every day. Like it's just boom, boom. Like we spent some $1,000 on sex toys. That came out today. Chelsea Clinton, the Clinton's daughter, did something where she made $86 million, like fraud, straight up evil. That came out today. It's like it's so much, and it's just like, oh, and so much is going on. The press conferences, Gaza, just Trump is just a million steps ahead of all of us, and it is Christmas every day. But nothing is more amazing to just have the corruption in our government exposed, our money cleaned, the savings that this is bringing. We're already up. I mean, I think it's pushing like $1 trillion a year now. Now, a lot of it is going to take some time to clean up still, but I think we'll end up saving like $3+ million a year when it's all said and done. So maybe more, maybe 4 trillion a year, 4 trillion a year. I could see that by the time this 4-year period is over. I bet we're spending $4 trillion less, or maybe even $5 trillion less. With Biden, it was going to be about 7 trillion. It was going to be our budget, which is just insane. It's pure corruption. It's pure money laundering. It's pure evil. Okay, and so they were trying to wreck the dollar. They were trying to take away our borders and literally just have the Amero and the North American Union, which is that's been in their game. That's been their play. And they've just been uprooted and they're in panic mode right now. And so it is so refreshing because you notice how a lot of this, even Republican senators, have been a little quiet regarding Elon Musk. They're not necessarily coming to his defense because they know they're going to get exposed for their corruption. Okay. Because there's plenty of Republicans that are corrupt too. So when we see this, it's so refreshing. He lays out some waste, and then we're going to go over even more waste.
How are you going to review the spending without reviewing the spending? How are you going to audit the spending by an agency without auditing the agency? That's what I mean when I say common sense is illegal in Washington, D.C. That's what Mr. Musk is doing. He's put together a crackerjack team, and they're going through everybody's spending line by line, item by item. And my Democratic colleagues are very, very, very upset. And they've been very eloquent. They've talked about the process, and President Trump's executive order supposedly violates the Constitution. And they've accused Mr. Musk of having conflict,
which is false. There's not one single accusation that the Dems have made against Musk in this whole thing that's accurate and true. Not one. It's 100% lies. Every single lie they put out is 100% debunked. This is absolutely constitutional. What is unconstitutional is what USAID is doing and what our bureaucrats are doing that are unelected. They're hidden. They're secret. It's in the dark. We don't know what's going on. Our money being spent, it's all in the dark. It's not brought to light. Okay, all of that is unconstitutional. Literally everything they're doing is unconstitutional. And then they want to turn around and accuse Musk of literally just doing the same thing they've done to us, which is rob and steal and hijack our government straight up. All right.
Conflicts of interest. And so I've heard people say he's sitting over there with a notepad, copying down everybody's social security number, and he's going to go use it to make money. I mean, people in this town, not just my Democratic colleagues, they're really upset. They've never said anybody question their spending. But that's what Mr. Musk is doing. But you know, I've listened.
They've never had anyone look at their spending. They want to audit us, the IRS, and hire hundreds of thousands of more IRS agents. Okay. And they want to audit the hell out of us But they don't want the same treatment. Nope.
This has been going on for a week. People have been screaming like they're part of a prison riot. Oh my God, look at what Musk is doing. He's looking at the spending. And I've listened to people talk about the process and debate whether it's constitutional and discuss how many lawyers can dance on the head of a pin. But you know what? I haven't heard one single person who's upset with President Trump or Mr. Musk talk about what he's found.
Right.
They don't want to talk about the spending porn, the waste of taxpayer money that he's found. I mean, that's the point of all this. I tell you who is interested. The American people.
Yep.
The people in America who get up every day and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and try to educate their kids and try to do the right thing by their kids and try to save a little money for retirement and have had to live through 20% inflation under President Biden. They understand what Musk is doing. They understand spending porn and wasting taxpayer money. Now, Mr. Musk started with the USAID. That handles a lot of foreign aid for America. American people are very generous. In our country,
Yep.
you know, when you're homeless, we'll house you. When you're hungry, we'll feed you. In our country, when you're too poor to be sick, we'll pay for your doctor. And we send a lot of money overseas to help our world's neighbors. And the USAID is in charge, in large part, of that. But I'll tell you what Mr. Musk discovered. I found it.
Yeah, and he's being very generous there. So let me just be clear. I think people are opening their eyes just to find out that USAID is 100% a fraud. I guess it's possible that it could be revamped and fixed, but as it's basically 100% evil and a fraud. There's nothing good in it. Now, a lot of people have been saying, no, there are some good things they're doing. Not really. The answer to that is no, it's not. So, gosh, I already have like 200 hours of content I want to do right now, ready to go. There he is. Tish, baby. Let's go. I have literally 200 hours of content I want to do. And then every day I find literally 5 to 10 more hours of content that I want to cover immediately. That's how that's how insane this is. My brain is fried and head spinning, and it's insane. And I just lost what I was going to say. The Medicare and Medicaid. That's coming out. There's some major, just awful things coming out with Medicare and Medicaid spending. There's some whistleblowers also coming out of the woodworks talking about some nefarious things as far as our spending goes. Every single dollar that our government spends needs to be clearly exposed, and it's going to just be nuts. They have created a web of literally millions of shell companies and NGOs and nonsense after nonsense after nonsense. NGOs that literally do the opposite of what their name says they're doing. Like, if they're out there promoting democracy, what they're doing is they're out there overthrowing governments and creating anarchy and creating dictatorships. Like, it's literally the opposite. And there's a ton of that happening in USAID, but there is so much coming out. I cannot even keep up with it, man. It's
fascinating. He discovered that the American taxpayers are giving money to Afghanistan. He found that we are giving money to Yemen. He found that we are giving money to Syria. I didn't know that. Some of our foreign aid is going to Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria. He found that the USAID has 10,000 people, employees. And every year they give away $40 billion. Mr. Musk also found, and I'm not saying that all of this money is wasteful. I'm not. Some of the
it's all. So I'm going to say it then. If he's not, I'm going to say it's all 99.99% is totally wasteful and awful and evil, straight up.
money, I'm sure, does some good. That's why Secretary Rubio is going to revamp the department to separate the good from the bad. But this is the kind of stuff Mr. Musk found. He found that the USAID gave money to support electric vehicles in Vietnam. Our money, taxpayer money. He found that USAID gave money to a transgender clinic in India. I didn't know that. I bet you the American people didn't know that. He found that the USAID gave $1.5 million to a Serbian LGBTQ group called Grupa Izadaji. I probably mispronounced that. My apologies. Anyway, they got $1.5 million to, quote, advance diversity, equity, inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities.
And then what keeps coming out is that oftentimes literally 0% actually goes to what it says it's going to. It actually ends up getting laundered through. Tons of people, even from Africa, are coming out of the woodworks saying nope. And they're actually proving. So somebody today in Africa proved with documentation that there was something like 50 some million dollars was given to them, but they actually only received 2 million. The other 48 million went elsewhere, and then it's looked at by DOGE, and then they look at it, and it was literally money laundered through hundreds of thousands of shell companies. And then what's happening is all these documents are just leaking out on just all day long on the internet. And then you try and read it and make sense of it. Okay. And it's insanity. And then what they're doing, and AI is helping them, is just to help organize and formulate the information and the data and the numbers and actually what's doing what and where it's all going through just sheer solid proof with EIN numbers and the actual literal date and time of each transaction and where it's going. And it goes then to that company and then funnels through tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of shell companies. Okay. And just on and on and on. Like each transaction will funnel through like that. And they're just tracking it. And it's just complete insanity. Okay.
What else did Mr. Musk found that my colleagues don't want to talk about? Well, he reviewed a study and then went and checked it. The study was done by the Middle East Forum. They found that USAID spent $164 million to support radical organizations around the world. We're not talking Cub Scout troops here. We're talking about radical organizations around the world. They gave $122 million of that to groups aligned with foreign terrorist organizations.
Yep.
Our taxpayer money.
That's being generous. It's billions. Okay. In the bigger picture, it's tens of billions, including the Mexican cartels. And it's even going to fund the human trafficking. It's going to fund organ, like children getting trafficked, and then even having like forced organ donation. Okay. Sex slavery. The human trafficking industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, which is insane.
To this report, Mr. Musk, the USAID has given millions of dollars to, quote, organizations in Gaza controlled by Hamas. Why aren't?
And including, so just one line, one of the little lines are $50 million for condoms in Gaza. So you cannot make this stuff up, which apparently would buy, what was it? What was the number? 1 billion condoms, maybe something like that. It was like 86,000 condoms, maybe per person, I think was the number.
My colleagues talking about that. Recipients of the money they found have, quote, called for their lands to be cleansed from the impurity of Jews. That's what we're giving foreign aid to. What else? I'm not going to spend my whole time talking about this, but nobody else is talking about it. They're just talking about the process. And
I want to actually spend and have an exhaustive coverage of all the fraud and waste. And I don't care if it takes 10 hours, 12. I want it all exposed, every single dollar.
Mr. Musk, and he's a mean guy, and he shouldn't be looking at our spending. Well, he is. And I kind of find what he found out interesting. He found that we gave $2 million, USAID did, for sex changes in Guatemala. He found that we gave $20 million to produce a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. He found that we gave $4.5 million.
$20 million to produce Sesame Street in Iraq. Okay, but the thing is it's not really, it's not where the money goes. It's a cover. It's a cover up.
Dollars of taxpayer money to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan.
That was
He found that we
4.5 million for misinformation campaigns, which literally means indoctrination campaigns. Okay.
Gave $10 million, USAID did, of meals to an Al-Qaeda linked terrorist group called the Nusra Front.
$10 million.
Mr. Musk found that we gave $7.9 million of taxpayer money to a project that would teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language. The USAID took $8 million and gave it to a bunch of journalists in Sri Lanka to teach them how to avoid binary gendered language. I don't know what the hell binary gendered language is.
$8 million to teach people how to avoid gender binary language. Let it settle in. This is where our money's going.
I do. You think most taxpayers would support that? Why are we talking about that? The USAID gave $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. They gave $1.5 million to rebuild the Cuban media ecosystem. They gave $1.5 million for, quote, art for inclusion of people with disabilities in Belarus. Another $3.9 million for LGBT causes in Macedonia.
In Macedonia.
$8.3 million for equity and inclusion education in Nepal.
Nepal.
I could go all night.
He literally could go all night.
And many of my colleagues are upset. They're really mad at Mr. Musk. Hell, I think we ought to give him a medal. All he's doing is what President Trump said he was going to do. President Trump said he's going to audit the spending. So Trump goes and hires Musk, again, with a top secret security clearance. Nobody can quibble with his intelligence. You know, the guy's as smart as Einstein's cousin.
Unless you're AOC. All right. AOC said he's the least smartest billionaire she's ever seen, and then laughs. You know, a crazy piece came out exposing how AOC got elected. She's literally an actor. So they auditioned 10,000 people for a Congress role, and she got the audition. It was an audition, and then they put her in Congress because we all know they rigged the elections. Okay.
He's a very successful businessman. Some say he's the richest guy in the world. And he's doing the auditing. And man, he's finding a lot of stuff. I call it spending porn. Now, I'm not saying everything that USAID does is wasted, but I'm saying a lot of it is. A hell of a lot of it is. And we ought to be on the floor of this United States Senate thanking Mr. Musk. And we ought to be asking him to go through every agency and look at everybody's budget. Everybody's budget. That's what the American people want. They don't want to talk about process. They don't want to continue with the Washington way. They want to save some money. And let me tell you what's really going on here too, Mr. President. For 4 years under President Biden, and for 8 years under President Obama, and I respect both of them. I don't hate anybody. I don't. When I say my prayer at night, one of the things I ask God, don't let me hate, because it's hard in Washington. Don't let me hate. I have all the respect in the world for President Biden and President Obama. Tough job. But between them, they spent 12 years.
Well, I think Biden is on his way to jail, straight up. I think Obama is straight up on his way to jail. They have been dissecting the Obama Foundation, and it's mind-blowing. It's beyond mind-blowing. And where our tax dollars actually ended up going to the Obama Foundation. Our tax dollars funding liberal media outlets for hit pieces. On and on and on and on and on and on and on.
In Washington, and presidents set the tone. They control the questions that are asked. And here's the question that President Obama and President Biden asked for 8 years. For 12 years. I heard it every single day. Who needs to pay more in taxes? Is it you? Is it you? Who needs to pay more in taxes? We need more money. Who needs to pony up more? That was the issue. But that's not the issue today. We have a new president. You know what the issue is today? What the hell happened to all the money? What the hell happened to all the money? And that's what Mr. Musk is finding out. That's all this is about. And I'm just, I'm just shocked that my colleagues have decided that this is a hill they're going to die on.
Yeah.
How can you look the American people in the eye and support this kind of waste?
And just let them die, because that's what they're doing. They're literally just on a suicide mission. It's so obvious to the American people. No, we actually want things to be audited, but people are literally just so brainwashed. They watch the media, which is totally lies and covers it up. They listen to these people, and it literally is mind-blowing to me.
Support this kind of spending porn. I mean, the election to me made at least one thing clear, that the American people were sick and tired of people in Washington denying reality. The last administration tried to convince us that we were living in a crime-free world where inflation was temporary and the border was secure. And the American people didn't buy it. You know why? Because it wasn't true. And the administration, our last administration, tried to argue that Bidenomics was making our lives better. But the American people knew differently. They understood Bidenomics to mean I get to spend more to live worse. And they voted. Now, I mean, the American people were poorer under the last administration, but they didn't become stupid. They could see that the government was creating a problem, not trying to fix it. And they noticed the national debt, too. Put up that first chart for me. You know what our national debt is, Mr. President? $36 trillion. Not million, not billion. $36 trillion. It takes my breath away. Highest it's ever been, over 100% of our gross domestic product. Our debt's growing faster than our economy. And we toss around these numbers, a trillion, a billion, a million, a squillion, like it's nothing. I want to try to put this in context.
So he says if you count 1 second in $1, 1, 2, 3, it would take you over 1 million years to count to 36 trillion if you counted 1 per second.
I counted between bites of oatmeal at breakfast. I just counted continually. 1 numeral per second. It would take me 32 years to count to 1 billion.
So 1 billion with a B.
To count to 1 billion. It would be 2057. I'd be dead as Woodrow Wilson. I wouldn't live that long. And that's just a billion. Our debt's $36 trillion. You know how long it would take me to count to a trillion? 31,000 years. If I counted one numeral per second.
1 trillion, 31,000.
About as old as Chuck Grassley. 31,000 years. It would take me 1 million years to count to 36 trillion. Those are the kind of numbers we're talking about. And the American people understand it. Since 2019, America's population has grown 2%. We're not having babies. 2%. And that's after.
Sarge, I love you. Yes, it's crazy. What's going on has my head spinning. It's crazy.
Massive immigration. You know how much our budget has grown? 55%. 55%. Yeah, we've had inflation, but we haven't had 55% worth of inflation. That's how we got
55% inflation was by design. Let it sink in, folks. Corruption to the deepest of cores. And it's amazing that anybody would actually be duped in to not wanting this, to not wanting transparency with where our tax dollars are going. It's mind-blowing.
To this $36 trillion in debt. Put up the next chart for me. Now, some of this money we had to spend during the pandemic. And it was a bipartisan effort during the pandemic. Republicans voted for it and Democrats voted for it because we had no choice. I was there. I saw it from the inside. We came this close to losing the American economy. And you know who helped a lot? Doesn't get enough credit? Jay Powell.
Notice how Inflation Creation Act, like why did they call it that? $1 trillion. So it's crazy, you guys. All right. Let me show you a few other things. Okay. And then I might go live on a different subject. But there's so much I want to show you guys here. So, okay. Here's a leaked WikiLeaks email of a USAID official wrote a scathing assessment of then aid administrator. And He described USAID as nothing more than a slush fund for the State Department and claimed that it was merely a patsy for Hillary Clinton. So, all right, let's get to the Hillary garbage. Oh, so Daily Wire had a great write-up here. I could go through some of this, man. Okay. Mike Benz has been on a tear. Mike Benz has been all over this for years. And he's probably the best, if not one of the best. What's up? What's up, guys? He's one of the best at just breaking this down so well. And so, okay, this is what the Democrat senators and Republicans, there's some shady Republicans too, but just listen to the rhetoric on this. Like, they're doing everything they can to psyop your mind into thinking that Elon is the villain when they are the villains. And that's what villains do. They are masters at psyoping the narrative. Okay.
By an election in the building behind me, Elon Musk is seizing power from the American people.
No, he's not. He's doing what the American people voted for. We voted for the Department of Government Efficiency to come in and clean up all the waste in the system. In order for them to do that, that requires them to have access to the financials and see where money is being sent. This isn't complicated, but let's let her continue.
Elon Musk spent $280 million to buy an election for Donald Trump.
Okay, they went through $1 billion and still went bankrupt. The DNC. Just so Elon Musk volunteered his own time, his own money. Yeah, I've tried to look into it. As far as I know, neither Trump nor Elon is making any money. By the way, they're not even. Musk is doing this for free.
Now, Elon Musk is here to collect on his investment.
And of course, what people will say, by the way, is that, well, Musk is doing this to get in with Trump to help profit his businesses. No, that's what corrupt and mostly Democrats do. Musk is not, for example, campaigning with Trump to do away with gasoline vehicles. That's a Democrat move. That's not. Musk is supportive, literally supportive of Trump bringing back gasoline vehicles. Okay, for example, even though he has Tesla, just as an example. So every single narrative they spin is 100% false. I mean, it's almost like, Senator Warren, it's almost like you don't want the American taxpayer to know, where our tax dollars are going.
So what, is he going to steal the money out of my grandma's retirement account and deposit it in his account? What is he doing to collect on his investment? For one, he does not have the power to redirect any payments. He only has view-only access, but that's not convenient for the Democrats' fear-mongering. The reason he invested that money into the election is because he saw the Democratic Party as a threat to our civilization. He said this himself. I'm not saying this. He also has seen what the Democratic Party's ideals and values have done to one of his own children. But let's let her fear-mongering tirade continue.
He is here to seize power for himself. We are here to fight back. Yes.
They look so goofy. This is so goofy.
It is amazing that people just keep voting this lady in. It's just unbelievable.
Just using the fact that he's wealthy and a billionaire, right, to manipulate people into supporting Democrats and hating Elon Musk so the Democrats can get back in power. That's all she's doing. And it's gross. Notice she never tells you how he's seizing power. He's a billionaire, he's rich, and he's got access, and he's doing everything for himself, and he bought an election. You should not vote for him. We're the Republicans. You should vote for us. We're good. We're moral. We're fighting against it. Shut up. No, you're not. You're manipulative. Let's see how else this individual tries to manipulate people.
Musk has grabbed control of America's payment system. Yes. This is the system that makes sure that your grandpa gets his Social Security check on time.
For one, he didn't grab control. He was given access to view where transactions are going. If his job is to eliminate unnecessary and wasteful spending, yes, he needs to be able to view where the money's going. So he has view-only access to the system. She's out here telling you that he has control of it, and then she's fear-mongering, trying to get people to freak out about, oh, my grandma's Social Security check, all my benefits, he might just rip it away. She's trying to scare you, and she should be called out for it.
Yep, just pure It's pure non-factual. There's no data to verify anything they're saying, even though Musk is going for transparency. In fact, I heard a guy who's working. I heard an interview with a guy who isn't a part of Doge, but he's kind of working with Musk on fixing the election fraud, but also creating transparency for where in real time, the day might come where in real time, we're going to know where every single dollar is being spent, and it'll be just publicly known. It's phenomenal. Dream come true.
She's choosing specific words to paint a specific perception of what's happening when that is not actually accurate. For example, he grabbed control. No, he was given access by the federal government to view this and recommend what things should be cut.
Right. See, that's how they psyop. He grabbed control. You know, we could break down every single word they say, and there's always a spin, and there's no factual basis behind it at all. Nothing verifiable, not even a hint of it. Elon Musk thus far has been squeaky clean. Like zero. He is completely blameless through all of this. There's not one even somewhat semi-credible, verifiable claim they've made. They have made some claims, and then they were debunked, like proven with fact immediately, documentation and all. So, and they've been trying to attack them just nonstop.
She wants to manipulate people's perception to get them to think something that's not true, so they will vote against the right. And she's also trying to destroy Elon Musk's reputation and his credibility. It's disgusting. They keep trying to manipulate people. We need to keep calling it out.
Well said. Okay. So, gosh, there is so much. Oh, okay. This is, he doesn't produce the documentation on this video, but I've seen the documentation he speaks of here.
Funded a study explaining. So in the uncovered documents related to USAID, it turns out that the U.S. government, your tax dollars, right, $29 million went to Politico. And then Politico funded a study explaining why pizza is bad for you, okay? And then they sold that study for another $60 million to start a nonprofit whose drive is to shut down New York City pizza ovens and to push New York City pizza owners out of business. Then from that, they started another nonprofit to raise $17.3 million in order to buy pizzas around the country and dump them in the ocean in the name of doing good for the climate. This is all well documented. Unbelievable. Your tax dollars. So in the
so did you guys just wrap your mind around what he just said? It's totally factual, and that's where our tax dollars is going. So knowing this is going on, there's not a single thing that could be happening better right now than this. It's exactly what we voted for. It's beyond our wildest dreams that we could have ever hoped or imagined of what the American voters want. And yes, it's exactly what we voted for. So here is some different Reddit posts that are clipped and just being exposed, that people are calling for the killing of people working for Doge. FBI, please investigate. Okay. All right. So this data Republican is one of the guys on Doge. He's also had to have even the military come protect him from death threats. Okay. So, I mean, they just break this down so much. So this Sarah Longwell perpetrated to debunk this insane conspiracy theory saying that USAID money was funneled to the organization she and Bill. Okay. Elon's making up an insane conspiracy theory about Bill Crystal Bulwark and USAID that is all the rage over MAGA Twitter. I break down the autonomy of conspiracy theory and show how none of it, not even a whiff of it, is true. It's just how authoritarians play the game. So they're calling Trump's people authoritarians. Let me explain. This week, Elon has been amplifying several tweets alleging falsely that the Defending Democracy Together Institute, which is not at all defending democracy, a group Bill in Iran received funding from USAID The real story is this: USAID, the development agency that Elon is shuttering, gives grants as part of its regular operations. In the past, it gave money to a philanthropic foundation. That foundation has at some point in its history given funds to donor advised fund, and that fund has at some point in its history supported DDTI. Got that? So then this Doge guy completely debunks it. So, and proves it with just evidence in the EIN and, traces it. Okay. And that, so imagine we're, at the sun looking at the earth, and this is all the way zoomed in, and we're like standing on the ground now. So this is just a tiny, tiny, minute piece of this web that they create. And then in their software, this is just a screenshot. We can't click on it, but in their software, they can actually click on it and dissect every single thing. And so he just breaks it down and proves, the times and dates and where the money went, and on and on and on. And he's actually created a program where we can search ourselves and look at all of this. It's phenomenal. Okay, just as an example here. So for you, the deep state is preferable because you're listed as the president of Defending Democracy, EIN. He has the EIN number, which is an indirect beneficiary of USAID through Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. You are exposed. Hat tip. Right? And so yeah. And so there is just mountains of this exposed on the regular, just nonstop. Okay, this Doge just exposed. U.S. government has been throwing our Social Security money away on gender programs. So even our Social Security has fraud rampant. It's just like Senator Tommy Tumberville was telling the truth. They've been spending our Social Security. It's a scam. Okay. And so this is just so bizarre. Why does it do that? So it did it again, sure enough. So the Social Security Administration has terminated its contract for the Gender X Institute Initiative marker and removed all reference to gender ideology. This saves $1 million. Okay. Wow. Okay. It's got to stop doing that. I wish I could figure this out where it doesn't just literally, it zooms it up to the top. And I have thousands of things we could go over. So it won't work for going to the top. So how the hell do we pay YouGov $43,000 for a survey in 2021 with taxpayer money with YouGov survey? USAID spent $150 million for art for inclusion of people with disabilities. Okay. The second largest investor in X says that Twitter performed even better after Elon Musk fired 6,500 employees and got it to break even. He knows Elon is applying that same logic. Like right away, Elon did, even though they said he was going to go bankrupt and wreck all the investors. Not the truth. And now it's X is by far the number one news source in the world. So, okay. So he's just like talking about how in that video, how Elon is so good at systematizing things and cutting costs, being more efficient. So Elon said today, my guess is that 20% of legacy media is funded from the government in one form or another. Our government is funding the media, and it's literally unauthorized spending. All of this is 100% on unauthorized spending. So Mike Benz said it perfectly. When it's too dirty for the CIA, you give it to the USAID. And so USAID bankrolls media. Okay. Wow, there it is again. Did it again. It bankrolls media in over 30 countries. In 2014, Archive USAID report proudly states that the agency funded research on novel bat SARS like coronavirus, literally all in quotation right there, including corona, at the Wuhan Institute of Virology right there in 2014. That's exposed. These newly identified coronaviruses were found to bind to the human ACE2 receptor, suggesting the potential for direct transmission from bats to humans. Similarly, SARS-CoV-2, the virus responsible for COVID-19, exhibited a highly efficient ability to bind to the ACE2 receptor, significantly enhancing its ability to infect humans. The USAID report states in China, Predict partnered with USAID and set up long-term collaborations in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Predict isolated for the first time SARS-like coronaviruses from bats sampled in China, finally characterized the whole genome of two novel bat SARS and coronaviruses. The demonstrated of bat SARS-like coronaviruses with 99.98 sequence homology to SARS coronavirus. Okay, so this is just in the paperwork that's being uncovered. And they've got the paperwork. Mind-blowing stuff. Okay. So more insanity everywhere. Let us see what former administrators of USAID are up to these days. Gloria Steele served in 2021, currently COO of Cooperative for Assistance and Relief, percentage taxpayer funded 88.5%, salary $304,000. It's all tied in. It's just my okay. Yep. We saw that one already. Yeah. The FBI also, by the way, I mean, we've been seeing this. Trump released FBI classified documentation to Alex Jones that the FBI had been spying on InfoWars since 2013. We also got leaked audio and video, audio with the video of the CIA director literally just saying, we're going after Alex Jones until he runs out of money. And then once he ran out of money with multiple different interviews, well, he's out of money, so we moved on. So they literally just targeted, weaponized government, Nazi style, trying to arrest Alex Jones on complete false allegations and also calling him, by the way, white, racially motivated extremist organization under a type 3 assessment classification. So they've got videos on that they just released. While some of us are just learning about USAID, it seems it has been a very open secret. I wish I had been paying attention sooner. The fact that the Democrats are up in arms over this organization shows their level of corruption. Okay, this is good.
The more you look into, I have a picture here of an Al-Qaeda leader, and they are in a USAID tent. Look who signed the check for the initial $200,000 payment to the Islamic Relief Agency, the United States Agency for International Development. The more you look into USAID, the more shocked you will become. USAID was running a top-secret espionage program to undermine Cuba and push people to dissent. Now, let me show you how much money we're talking about. It included $1 billion sovereign loan guarantee, $320 million in general assistance. So where else beside the NIH has money been coming from? By far, the largest donors are from USAID and the Department of Defense. Judicial Watch found that the U.S. State Department and USAID had been giving millions to the Macedonian arm of George Soros's Open Society Foundation. What for? To train youth movements. So USAID, and those are always, they're known by anybody who pays attention as CIA fronts. This is...
Yeah, all this is just absolutely 100% spot on. Glenn Beck. It also came out that USAID, along, of course, with George Soros, also funded Black Lives Matter, the riots and protests, as well as Antifa. Absolutely. And we've known that with George Soros, but George Soros is a small player compared to USAID. Literally, our tax dollars was paying Black Lives Matter to terrorize the country in 450 different cities, causing tens of billions of dollars of damage to buildings, killing several deaths, including several police officers, dozens of police officers, several dozen people killed, and thousands critically wounded. Okay, like almost beat to death, beat half to death type stuff that they were doing. As evil as it gets, to the core. That's where our tax dollars were going.
You know, the USAID comes into a country, they start doing things, and next thing you know, we've got a revolution on our hands because that's the CIA.
Yep. Ron Paul came out with an awesome video on it. So here's one. Did you know that USAID spent your tax dollars to fund celebrity trips to Ukraine, all to boost Zelensky's popularity among Americans? Okay.
$1.5 million. USAID sponsored American celebrity visits to Ukraine after Russia's full-scale invasion began. Angelina Jolie, $20 million. Sean Penn, $5 million. Jean-Claude Van Damme, $1.5 million. Orlando Bloom, $8 million. Ben Stiller, $4 million. This was done to increase Zelensky's popularity among foreign audiences, particularly in the United States. The involvement of celebrities made it easier to coordinate funding programs for Ukraine during the conflict. USAID sponsored American...
Okay, and then the documentation is overwhelming. Okay, here's a readers added context to this video. This video has been fabricated to appear as though it came from E! News, but there's no evidence that E! News ever reported this. Ben Stiller has also explicitly denied this allocation, stating his trip was entirely self-funded. Okay. All right. See, not all of this is going to be 100% spot on. So it's just such an unraveling, though. Most of it is all spot on. Like there was one the other day that I said that apparently, I don't know where it came from. Tish, you still in the house? Okay. Okay. Mike Benz, everything he says, you can take it to the bank. Okay.
Countering disinformation has invaded online conversations on social media platforms, posing challenges to healthy information environments and threats to democracy. It bolsters authoritarians, weakens democratic voices and participation, exploits and exacerbates existing social cleavages, and silences opposition. Countering disinformation and promoting information integrity are necessary priorities for ensuring democracy can thrive. The CEP's Countering Disinformation Guide is a resource including 9 thematic sections and a comprehensive database of interventions.
So this misinformation campaign, hundreds of billions of dollars has been spent to censor your speech. So whoever controls the information has the power. They can dictate the narrative, and that's how they duped 95% of the human population into getting the vaccine, for example. Okay, for COVID, which isn't at all a vaccine, by the way. The COVID vaccine is not a vaccine. It's a genome sequencing experiment. As we've discussed, I still need to do the COVID vaccine video where it's all COVID, because there's so much, and I've even keep coming across more that is blowing minds. What's happening? So this is how they launder money and how they overthrow democracies and instill dictators to do what we want them to do. Like the level of evil is beyond even more disturbing than what I thought it was. And I had a very low view of what's happening in the world, that it's completely and utterly hopeless. Never thought in a million years all of this would begin to get uprooted. I never even hoped. I never even held out hope that there was even hope that any of this could even begin to get uprooted. So this is like one of the ultimate evils that USAID does. A substantial multiple tens of billions of dollars has been spent purely on this misinformation censoring speech, totalitarian, Nazi, communist manifesto, fascist agenda. And then that's all part of the plan. That's literally what one of the famous communist dictators said, was you literally just blame other people of what you're actually doing. It's like deflecting, you're guilty, and so you just blame other people. That's their play. Fortunately, somehow we've survived in this country. I don't even know how. And we're making a comeback. All right.
Highlighting various approaches for advancing information integrity and strengthening societal resilience to disinformation.
You see how nice they make it sound? Like this real nice lady speaking, like it's all classy. And you watch that and you're like, yeah, we need misinformation campaigns. That's a good point. We can't have people overthrowing our democracies. So let's just censor everybody's speech. It's literally what happened in this country. From the Biden office to Mark Zuckerberg, forcing Mark Zuckerberg to censor speech and hire 60,000 employees to literally just censor speech, taking down posts, calling it misinformation. That was happening on Twitter. They canceled Donald Trump's Twitter account even, and which was crazy. It's amazing that people were able to open their eyes. So, and then this is actually, okay, this CEPS, CEPPS, has raked in a massive amounts of USAID money and still controls to this day $500 million in active government awards. Yet they just funnel it straight to partisan NGOs, non-government organizations, splitting it between Republican Aligned International, Republican Institute, and the Democratic National Democratic Institute. And look, they just lay it out there. And so, I mean, this is just happening all day long from multiple different people exposing this all day long, proving it over and over again. Since 2011, CEPS, this organization that censors speech, that's just one of them, by the way, received 1.6 billion and distributed 100% of it to 3 entities: the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, International Republican Institute, and the other one was a Democratic one. And it's just like gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs from just those guys, from just the Doge guys and Mike Benz. And there's a few other guys popping out of the woodwork. So check this out.
Months, the United States President Donald Trump has suspended aid to Africa for 3 months. Okay, so for the next 3 months, the United States government is not going to provide any aid to an African country of any kind. All right, so this has brought a lot of talk, a lot of confusion amongst the population of us Africans. People are complaining and even blaming Donald Trump for actually imposing this kind of sanction. I would call it a sanction because most African countries actually depend on American aid. But I think this is a good thing because most Africans are actually lazy.
This might be the wrong one. Okay, this guy's just saying this is good for Africa because it creates the corruption. What he talks about is all the corruption in the African leaders. And it's literally what it is. We our government is literally creating dictatorships all over the world. No kidding. USAID spent $1.5 million for art for inclusion of people with disabilities. Oh, for the love of God. Why does it do that, guys? I don't know. Government-funded NGO gets a USAID grant for something vague like strengthening education. That NGO dumps millions into a DAF, donor advised fund. The DAF isn't required to disclose what the NGO told them to do with the money, but somehow every hyper-political nonprofit with the sketchy agenda ends up getting funded. Here's one of the websites for the government NGO tracking that this data Republican created. You can go to this website. I've toyed around with it. Okay. Goodness gracious. Oh yeah, this one. How about this? Divas Adult Sex Toy Store, DBA Divas Enterprises. Total awarded amount $14,000 for sex toys. Twice? Or just once? That was so we bought some sex toys for some divas with our tax dollars. The U.S. government gave the New York Times tens of millions of dollars over just the past 5 years, despite paying relatively little money to the New York Times in the years preceding 2021. For instance, in August 2024, the U.S. government awarded $4.1 million to the New York Times. Gosh. The bulk of the funds came from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. That's weird. At $26.9 million. Followed by the National Science Foundation at $19.15 million. All of which, guys, is U.S. taxpayer dollars going to the New York Times. And then they just have it right here. Here's the, they have the documentation. We can just look right at it. And so it's bizarre. I've got people like on Facebook saying that this is a hoax. You're just a extreme radical right-wing extreme conspiracy theorist. Really? I'm a conspiracy theorist. Donald Trump won the election miraculously, I should say, and is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, which is in and of itself a miracle that there's a single politician on earth that actually does that. And then DOGE with Elon Musk is combing through the files and exposing them for all to see. And I'm a conspiracy theorist because I spend 16 hours a day looking into this and have no life at all whatsoever because I'm crazy manic like that. So who's the conspiracy theorist again? Propping up a failing newspaper that no one reads to promote pro-Ukraine, anti-Trump, and anti-Elon Musk propaganda makes a lot of sense when you have unlimited money to throw around. The timeline lines up when the war in Ukraine began, as well as 24 cycle election cycle. Yeah. So insane. Okay. Search USAID's mishandling for yourself. No aid to Americans. So somebody said here that to go to datarepublican.com. Here's just one sample of what I found. Funding Guatemalan women to stitch ponchos. And they also found vague community organization efforts. Yeah, you know someone high up in USAID. If you know someone high up in USAID, what would you talk about? Yeah, it's insane. What's going on? It's completely mind-blowing. Endless. A 2006 Archive USAID website proudly claims the agency supported revolutions in Ukraine, Georgia, Lebanon, and it's one of the stands. USAID funded and trained thousands of journalists, lawyers, judges, election workers, conducted polls questioning election legitimacy. So they funded, we know how they do it. It's the George Soros, because they funded Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And that's the play, right? Okay. So Elon Musk confirms, yes, USAID has been propping up the global left via U.S. taxpayer dollars, even in Poland. Yeah, that Matt, if you're still here, it was a sarcastic response he wrote. Polish billionaires offer to help left-wing magazine after Trump cuts funding. Oh, that was a joke because Trump cut the funding to a Polish USAID has cut all its funding, by the way, right now, including to this Polish media outlet. Okay, this is good. One lesson I remember from the PayPal days. Do you know who complained the loudest? The fraudsters. There would be immediate over-the-top indignation from the fraudsters. That's what he learned from PayPal. He also learned it, of course, from X, from Twitter. Normal people will say, I think there's something wrong. Fraudsters will come out hot out of the gate. Well said. Why was the USDA, why was US FDA paying $517,000 for 37 subscriptions to Politico when those subscriptions should have cost $7,400? Hint, money laundering. Yep. They are just constantly printing out. This is kind of like, yeah, NASA was also paying $500,000 in Politico subscriptions. And guess what? NASA leadership has verified that it was canceled today. NASA is dirty, dirty, dirty. It's another money laundering. There's so much with NASA, including all this nonsense here, but also including $500,000 on Politico subscriptions. So the CEPPS raked in massive amounts of USAID money and still controls over $500 million. That is the company that indoctrinates and trains people on how to create misinformation campaigns. Yeah. Poland is amazing. Matt Tisch, baby, just got back. He served over there. Got in the army, I believe, right? The army. Coming back, getting geared up. Gonna be back on the streets, walking the streets. Police officer, baby. Let's go. Props to Tisch. Very American influence, but they are behind, like going back to the 90s in some aspects. Yeah. Poland seems like an awesome place to me. Straight up, baby. Okay. USAID spends hundreds of millions each year on media development. This is the same thing we've been talking about, to sponsor a worldwide media octopus for the blob. And the translation of the blob is all the corruption, all the government overthrowing, all the riots they create, all the money laundering. Streetwalker. He's going to beat the streets. All right, baby. Okay. Yep. USAID's been spending millions of taxpayer dollars every year funding not only the BBC, but also Politico. That's right. BBC, I believe that number is insane. Like, I could be wrong. So I'm just going off just so much data in my brain. I think BBC is $300 million. We funded BBC that literally just is running Trump hit campaigns, demonizing Trump, demonizing Elon Musk nonstop. When it's too dirty for the CIA, you give it to USAID. Why is so much USAID money flowing through donor advised funds? What did these awareness or awards instruct them to do with that money? So every church NGO I looked up, so this goes deep. It's like a spider web of long threads I could get into here. Yeah, 20% of legacy media is funding from the government in one form or another, is what Elon's saying. 20% of legacy media is funding from the government. You guys. So Mike Benz has done endless research, but on this, he's done 50 hours of private live stream lectures for my ex-subscribers on USAID. And every time I mention cheminonics, I stress this wormhole as at the dark heart of how USAID does what it does, operating as a private, self-sustained, standalone, off-the-shelf CIA. So this cheminonics, Mr. Murphy said he started cheminonics in 1976 because I've always wanted a way to do things. One, have my own CIA, and two, be helpful to people, quote unquote. And that's at the heart of USAID. And you can dig deep down this rabbit hole, which I'm not going to do because I don't know what the hell's going on. When I click on something, it just goes haywire. So, and I've like fried my brain trying to make sense and going down all these insane rabbit holes. I'm like Dorothy, who's no longer in Kansas, and it's completely insane. Did you know? Shout out to Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene. USAID spent $70 billion with a B of your hard-earned tax dollars to fund abortions and woke Democrat gender ideology in foreign countries. $70 billion funding abortion services internationally, advancement of global gender equality and responsive to gender violence. You see, it's not gender violence is garbage. but they have to create that narrative. They have to psyop the society, like we talked about yesterday, how these psyops work and how like the media is paid to do this. People like, by the way, Rachel Maddow just got a pay cut from $29 million a year to $24 million to do psyops such as white supremacy is out of control, creating mass murder. And it's like you watch these psyops and it's like, oh my God, there's just these white supremacists everywhere. We can't even go to Walmart because of all this mass murder of white supremacists. And then when you look in to the videos, they're always fake videos. They literally have to make fake videos of the white supremacy. Or they are FBI informants, just like the J6 hoax. FBI had informants, and also Antifa, George Soros, including USAID, was a part of the J6 hoax. The people that broke into the Capitol building, broke the windows, were never arrested. We have video footage proof of how just it was a hoax, A to Z. 100% hoax. And so billions of dollars. There was one little place where USAID spent $10 billion just on creating. They paid $10 billion in one country in 1 year just to create mobs of people. They're paying these mobs of people, by the way, to also quit their jobs, paying them off to become radicalized mobs, rioting against whatever, white supremacy or, gender hatred, gender violence, all this gender violence everywhere. They do this shit. It's never ending. So that's their playbook. Do not be unaware of their schemes, people. USAID bankrolls media operations in over 30 countries. In 2023, they funded training and support for 6,200 journalists, assisted 707 non-state news outlets, and supported 279 media sector civil society organizations. DOGE aids search Medicare agency payment systems for fraud. Okay. And this was, I think, yesterday, or maybe this came out this morning. And a lot's coming out on Medicaid and Medicare and even Social Security fraud through USAID. So this guy, Data Republican, has created all these systems and he coaches you on how to get in there, and you can do your own research and get the data yourself. But he often posts the data of his findings, and so do other people that he'll then repost. It's a great follow. It's phenomenal. Here we go. Chelsea Clinton casually taking home $84 million. Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton gross receipts. So the $84 million was just on the taxpayer side. There's been a lot. Oh my gosh. I think that's a long thread. And should we kind of, it did it again, of course. Okay. Oh, man. So Chuck Schumer came out and said an unelected shadow government is conducting a hostile takeover federal government. DOGE is not a real government agency. That's false. DOGE has no authority to make spending decisions. And that's true unless Trump gives it to DOGE, which apparently on something today he did. I can't remember what it was. DOGE has no authority to shut programs down or ignore federal law. That's true. And DOGE hasn't done that, by the way. Yeah. Horrific level of theft. Congress must take action to restore the rule of law and not allow the American citizens to see where all our tax dollars are going. We wouldn't want that, would we? There was. So speaking of Chucky Schumer, his net worth is over $200 million. But here's what they don't tell you when we examine their net worth. And this is also being uncovered by some of these Doge guys, is that their offshore accounts are usually not accounted for when they're looking at the politician's net worth. And there is a host of things they do to cover up probably the majority of their money that they actually have. And so in some cases, like, it would be no surprise to me whatsoever when it says he's worth $202 million. His net worth, Chuck Schumer's net worth, is literally $202 million. Okay. It's probably at least 5 times that, would be my guess. Could be wrong. He's probably a billionaire. The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. So this is how USAID, this is a mega thread. I went through all of this today. And this is what Politico put out. A shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. We all know that the election was rigged, and there's endless amounts of countless hours, days, and weeks and months of continual information on that the election was rigged. It's overwhelming, and more evidence keeps coming out. Just this week, several new things have come out about the election fraud. There's been some arrests, and when it comes to election fraud, 98%, now 97% of USAID fraud goes to Democrats. And when it comes to election fraud, 98% of the election fraud is via Democrats. But this is a crazy unraveling of how USAID was involved in rigging our own election. Goodness gracious. It's crazy. USAID gives grants to far left-wing nonprofits. Nonprofits pay their employees 6-figure salaries, mostly in the $300 to $500K per year range. I'd estimate that over half of the DC economy is outright looting of all of us via USAID grants. Yep. More COO for cooperative assistance and relief. Percentage of taxpayer funded 88.5%. Salary $303,000. I mean, it's just like there's thread upon thread upon thread, and that I've been going through trying to make sense of all the madness that they uncover. Oh, this is the most important. Okay, Chase, he's talking about how the FBI spied on the InfoWars there. Gosh, we already went through this. This is insane, you guys. What is the deal with Twitter? It is like possessed by demons. It somehow magically just took me back to the top. I don't know how. Yep, we looked through all this. Days before Elon Musk and DOGE started cleaning out USAID, they received a scathing report from their own inspector general that agency's management created serious vulnerabilities by handing out billions of tax dollars to overseas countries and groups without fully vetting terrorist groups. So they were actually funding terrorist groups, actually, as has already been disclosed earlier in the video. $3 million for a knowledge-based framework for creating and sustaining transformational change for... Oh, yeah, we looked at that the other day. Just endless nonsense. Total active spending grants. Oh, my gosh. Okay. This is just... I've bookmarked a million things. And I don't know what the deal is with this. Maybe if I just refresh the whole page. This is a wild story about the House of Representatives impeached Donald Trump December 18th, 2019. The White House whistleblower went public with evidence that Trump abused his powers. All of that was fake and a fraud. So, gosh dang, my brain is so fried. I'm so exhausted. I come here to stream here lately, some of these days, and I'm just like out of gas. My brain is completely fried. I've received 97 texts or tweets since I started the video. Okay. Yeah, so this is overwhelming, guys. Completely overwhelming. I could show one more thing. The news report today. I mean, what's her name here? The new press secretary has been crushing it. She has been the press secretary, man. Has been
into the executive order a little bit because it is the news of the day here at the White House, and talk about what this executive action will actually do. So the executive.
I will. What is possessing my life? Okay, I will play this at 1.5x speed. Okay, she's just been on fire, man.
President Trump is in charge and America is back. This week further demonstrated that the Trump effect is real. Over the weekend, Americans celebrated the return of American Israeli citizen Keith Siegel and 2 Israelis who were held captive by Hamas terrorists since October 7th, 2023. President Trump and his administration worked diligently to secure their release and are committed to freeing all remaining hostages. Yesterday, as you all know, President Trump held his first foreign meeting at the White House with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And as the president said, the bonds of friendship and affection between the American and Israeli people have endured for generations and are absolutely unbreakable. The president is committed to eliminating Hamas and securing a lasting peace for the entire region. The historic proposal for the United States to take over Gaza, announced by President Trump last night, underscores this commitment. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. President Trump is an outside-of-the-box thinker and a visionary leader who solves problems that many others, especially in this city, claim are unsolvable. We've already seen the results from President Trump's bold peace-through-strength diplomacy on the world stage. In response to President Trump's tariffs this week, both Mexico and Canada took immediate steps to alleviate the illegal alien migration and flow of deadly drugs, particularly fentanyl, into our country. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to permanently supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the U.S. border who will be specifically designated to stopping fentanyl and criminal aliens from pouring into our country. And Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau agreed to appoint a fentanyl czar, list cartels as terrorists, and increase resources to assist the 10,000 frontline personnel at our northern border with Canada. In recognition of these steps, President Trump paused the implementation of tariffs for 1 month while negotiations continue and final deals can be structured. Throughout the transition and during his inaugural address, President Trump made it known that the United States cannot and will not allow the Chinese Communist Party to continue with its effective and growing control over the Panama Canal. Following Secretary Rubio's successful first trip and visit there over the weekend, Panama's president said he will allow its participation in the Chinese Communist Party's, it will no longer allow the participation in the Belt and Road Initiative. That participation will expire. This is significant because Panama was the first Latin American nation to join Belt and Road and now becomes the first to back away from it because of President Trump. And to assist with the ongoing mass deportation effort, El Salvador's president has agreed to the most unprecedented migratory agreement anywhere in the world. Because President Trump is back in charge, El Salvador has offered for illegal aliens of any nationality.
This just hit. I want to show you guys something. I'll come back to this real quick. Look at this. Our boy Mike Benz just put this out. Okay. It's worth noting Liz Cheney didn't just work at USAID. Liz Cheney, who should be in jail, but she got pre-pardoned by Biden. All right. She worked specifically on Russia and Ukraine portfolio at USAID. When I talk about the C's, whatever, side of the blob and its motivations for taking out Trump with Russiagate, you're looking at the face of it. This is Mike Benz. Okay. And so she previously served as USAID officer in U.S. embassies, specifically working for the agency in positions related to Poland, Hungary, Russia, and Ukraine. Her work with the agency dates to the early stages of her career, a fact picked up on and shared on X by Mike Benz, executive director of Foundation for Freedom Online. Mike Benz Liz Cheney, damn right, Elon. I'm proud of what America did to win the Cold War, defeat Soviet communism, and defend democracy. Our nation stood for freedom. You may be unfamiliar with that part of our history since you weren't yet an American citizen. Okay, and so Liz Cheney, who led Trump's impeachment and the mass imprisonment campaign against thousands of Trump supporters, was spawned out of USAID. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Had to show you that. There's just so much going on, you guys. ICE raided apartment complexes in Colorado. They arrested 100 today. Oh, damn right. I was spawned out of USAID. Liz Cheney. Treasury leadership verified that their NYT contracts were canceled today. Yep, we knew that. Oh, man. So I talked the other day about the trans LGBTQ movement that Trump has. Here is a hardcore Trump supporter who is a transsexual lover of life and liberty. I listen to vinyl and shoot guns a lot. Former Democrat, leave the kids alone. MAGA, Maha. One of the things I talked about the other night is how trans people, normal, actual trans people, don't want to be billboard trans peoples invading our military and schools with little kids. That part of the trans movement. So somebody like her or him or whatever, she straight up responded to ESPN's tweet today saying, I am a man who's now trans as a woman who is anti men and women sports. Thank you very much. Just like set ESPN straight. This is just an example. And she says, I'm pretty sure without evidence that President Trump got more trans votes than any previous Republican presidential candidate. Most Black, LGBT, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, and whatever else is considered a minority ever in America's history. I'm filled with pride, USA. So this is kind of my point, is that somebody like this person recognizes the Dems using trans as a pawn to be sacrificed. It's not good for most of the trans community doesn't want to be billboard trans people and force it down everyone's throats. That is a psyop. Most of the billboard trans people are actually like George Soros or even USAID funded, and it's not real. Most trans people want to be trans in private. They're not trying to be billboard trans people. It's a psyop. Let it sink in. It's the same with blacks and Blacks Lives Matter. They're being used as a pawn, just as Lyndon Johnson said he would do, who was a part of the KKK and said he would still continue to rule over the blacks. Literally, he said it just straight up. Like, he'll keep them in slavery to the Democratic Party. He said that. I'll have to find that quote sometime. And so it's just amazing that people are opening their eyes and realizing you're just getting played and used. Okay. Had to give that a shout out. DOGE Commerce team looked for applicable NWS website and it had already been removed thanks to the unknown hero. So somebody is taking down these corrupt websites. You know, it's just like where all this shady money laundering went. Yeah. And I guess Elon saying that they'll fix it. I guess maybe it wasn't. It was. I don't know if it was purposely taken down. There's something so meta about grants for grant writing. Trustees of Indiana University, $3.5 million enhanced grant writing coaching intervention for a diverse biomedical workforce. They got a grant from our taxpayer dollars. This is literally the shadow government spending trillions of dollars of our taxpayer money onto who the hell knows what. It's come to our attention that there are several corporate firewall solutions. Okay. I guess people are trying to attack and spam stuff, and that's what they do, create chaos. The leftist agenda, the Marxist leftist agenda, is to create violence and chaos and horror. That's literally how they gain power. And that's also how USAID gains their power over and that's how they subvert other governments. It's just rampant. Democrats' ridiculous rules and regulations cost American people $1.9 trillion over the past 4 years. Cutting big government regulations is how we make Washington work for better families. This is more just DOGE stuff coming out. Regulatory cost. Just the cost to regulate things was $1.9 trillion of our taxpayer dollars. If that isn't pure bureaucratic corruption, I don't know what is. Let's add that to DOGE. Okay. Prediction. There won't be a fight back against Trump on the trans and girls sports EO he signed. I think Democrats have acknowledged this topic, solidified their losses in November. Republicans spent millions in toss-up states on anti-trans removing men and women's sports. But still, of course, they have riots of trans protesters and literal just riots, but definitely lots of protesting going on. Yeah, it's not a favorable outlook for the trans stuff. Report. I doubt this is related, but just a few hours ago, my Norton 360 on Windows 11 started blocking my main X feed and telling me that it's a scam site. So I added the X URL in the Norton whitelist. Never had to do that before. Yeah, no, I don't trust even Norton. Report this too. Okay. So stuff is being attacked. And it begins. So we are mostly DDS proof and high availability because I made the deliberate design decision to keep everything client side and served off CDNs, our greatest threat vector. So they're being attacked. People are trying to attack what they're doing, what the Doge guys are doing. But these guys are like wizards. They're going to be all over it. This site is blocked due to a phishing threat. Interesting. Huh. Oh. Okay. Even more important than waste, Doge is revealing its is the corruption it's revealing. That's exactly right. Kaizen, who, by the way, did a spaces tonight with trans people. So Kaizen is really working towards having discourse with the left. It's not going to work, but you know, it's still good. It's a good, and it could work. You know, you're planting seeds to try and wake people up. So I'm all here for it. Mike Benz is a must follow. USAID paid $20 million on hit pieces for journalists to dig up dirt on Rudy Giuliani. We knew that. Tesla officially hiring engineers to prepare for mass production of Optimus Tesla bot. So I think Tesla is going to do like these taxis, air taxis, like with helicopter drone type things. That'll be our taxis of the future. So I've been dollar cost averaging into some Tesla stock. Oh, breaking. President Trump EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin just eliminated the agency's Office of Environmental Justice, which is made up of 200 bureaucrats. I just love where this is going. And you can take it to the bank. All the environmental, climate change, global warming stuff is almost all a pure money laundering scheme. And there is a host of money laundering that is being unraveled through Doge via the climate change narrative, such as the new green hoax, like the new green scam, as Trump called it, where $1 trillion. He saved $500 billion, $500 billion on getting out of that. But we had already spent $500 billion in the green news scam. Unbelievable stuff. Okay. So let's watch a little bit more. I'm totally out of gas. I'm running on fumes. People, let's get back to our girl, Caroline Leavitt, who's crushing it.
Facing deportation in the U.S. to be booked in his country's prison system. And finally, President Trump's envoy for special missions, Rick Grenell, traveled to Venezuela and not only secured the release of 6 American hostages, but Venezuela also agreed to accept the return of illegal alien Tren de Aragua gang members. All of these incredible victories prove how well President Trump's peace through strength approach is working. And the days of weak American leadership are over. In another success story this week, efforts to seal the border, halt the invasion, and carry out the largest mass deportation campaign continue at lightning speed. Customs and Border Protection has approximately 79 miles of new border wall projects already underway in various stages of construction and planning. The first flights arrived to Guantanamo Bay yesterday.
So miles of the border wall is already being constructed. We see even the military was doing some of that. So it's just amazing. This is just amazing. We're just seeing action, getting things done more than what we could have even dreamed of in the first 16 days. He's been the president for 16 days, people. It feels like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. If you would have told me 4 weeks ago that Trump got done what he's already gotten done in the first 6 months, I would be elated. If you would have told me 4 weeks ago that Trump got done, what he's already done in 16 days, in 6 months, though, if he got as much as he's already gotten done, if he pulled it off in 6 months, I would be ecstatic. But he's done it in 16 days.
Yesterday afternoon out of El Paso. And who were some of the passengers aboard, you may ask? There were 10 members of the transnational gang Tren de Aragua on this flight. And overall, our heroic ICE agents continue to prioritize the removal of violent, criminal, illegal aliens in communities across the country. On February 3rd, ICE Dallas arrested a citizen of Nicaragua who has been convicted of sexual assault, strong arm, and lewd acts with a minor and sentenced to 15 years in prison. ICE Los Angeles arrested a Mexican citizen who has been convicted of lewd acts with minor.
This just came in, and I heard this earlier. This is old news, but USAID spent $2 million for sex change operations and LGBTQ activism in Guatemala. They also were working with cartels and were very involved in the Guatemalan human sex trafficking and human trafficking. That's all coming out. Yep. And it's all exposed, the documentation. Goodness gracious. Okay.
With a minor and sentenced to 364 days. And ICE Atlanta arrested a citizen of Mexico who has been convicted of homicide by vehicle and hit and run and sentenced to 6 months confinement. And ICE New York arrested a Venezuelan national and known TDA gang member who has a prior criminal conviction for assault in the 3rd degree causing physical injury. Americans are safer every single time one of these criminals is arrested and deported from our country. On another important and ongoing topic, the Senate is working fast to confirm President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees in the face of relentless media smear campaigns. As of right now, 12 members of the president's cabinet have been confirmed, most recently Pam Bondi, who, as you all know, I was just in the Oval Office for that swearing-in ceremony surrounded by...
And Pam Bondi is such a rock star. Pam Bondi, first thing she did was they're ceasing federal aid to all sanctuary cities. Like, they are not around and find out. Like, it is just phenomenal what they're doing. Pam Bondi, rock star. We still desperately need to get Kash Patel. We need to get RFK. We need to get Tulsi Gabbard. We got to get them through.
Pam's lovely family, and we look forward to watching her serve as the Attorney General of the United States. According to CNN, President Trump is getting more cabinet picks confirmed so far than the average president in the modern era. Another success story. And we believe it's critical that Republicans in the Senate majority stay tough and keep their foot on the gas to confirm all of the remaining nominees as quickly as possible so we can continue President Trump's important work here at the White House and across our entire federal government. And lastly, throughout his historic campaign, President Trump pledged to restore common sense to our country. And he's continuing to deliver on that with an executive order that he will sign later today. The president will be signing an executive order keeping men out of women's sports to defend the safety of athletes, protect competitive integrity, and uphold the promise of Title IX. This common sense action from President Trump ends the disgusting betrayal of women and girls by the previous administration, who for years catered to radical activists who wanted biological males to be treated as women in workplace showers, competitive sports, prisons, and even rape shelters. Gender, ideology, insanity is over. Submissions from individuals across...
What was crazy about that, and nobody knew this because the media covers it up, was there was one girl in a locker room that got beat nearly to death. She almost died. She got beat up in a woman's locker room by a trans man. Like, that was actually happening. These psychopaths a lot of them were actually predators. Just like, there's so much crazy shit that came out. I saw a bunch of videos months ago on it. God, I couldn't believe it.
Across the country interested in participating in our new media seat at a future briefing continue to flood in. We are at more than 12,000 and counting. If you're watching right now and are interested, you can continue to apply on our new media website, whitehouse.gov/newmedia. And in the seat today, we have a longtime national television broadcaster. I'm sure many of you recognized her when she came in, Sage Steele, who is now the host of an incredibly successful podcast, The Sage Steele Show, on YouTube and all podcast platforms. And previously, Sage was a fixture at ESPN from 2007 to 2023, primarily hosting SportsCenter, which we all know well.
And she went today. PragerU released a video interview of her and how she sued ESPN. And it's over bullshit leftist nonsense. I meant to listen. I didn't get to that yet today.
Before leaving the company to exercise her First Amendment rights more freely, we are honored to welcome her to the briefing room today. She will be joining the president at the big EO signing later this afternoon. I know many of you will be there as well. So Sage, why don't you kick us off on this very exciting day for women and girls across the country. Thank you for joining us.
I didn't know.
Caroline, thank you for welcoming people like me with a little bit of a different perspective, different background in this seat. It really does mean a lot. Thank you. Obviously, the House already passed the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which is a really big step for women and girls. So far, the Senate, as we know, has not brought it up to vote. We all know executive orders can be overturned. So I'm wondering how important it is to the president to get Congress to bring this, to pass legislation. So there are no instances like the past administration that really tried to destroy Title IX.
It's incredibly important that Congress immediately acts on this priority. I think the president is really setting the tone, making this a very immediate priority for this administration, just as he promised to do on the campaign trail. And I'd like to get into the executive order a little bit because it is the news of the day here at the White House, and talk about what this executive action will actually do. So the executive order that the president will be signing later this afternoon, as I said, upholds the promise of Title IX. It also will require the DOJ to abide by the nationwide previous administration's illegal Title IX rewrite that would have dissolved single-sex spaces and opportunities. It also requires immediate action, including enforcement actions against schools and athletic associations comprised of schools that deny women single-sex sports in single-sex locker rooms. The executive order also calls for the convening of private sporting bodies in the White House. We want them to come to this campus so the president can hear in person the stories of female athletes who have suffered lifelong injuries, who have been silenced and forced to shower with men and compete with men on athletic fields across the country. Many of those women will be at the White House today. I encourage all of you in the media to actually talk to them, to hear their stories. And I would also just add one more thing. This is a wildly popular position with the American people. In fact, there was a new poll recently that showed the overwhelming majority of Democrats also support keeping biological men out of women's sports. And so I know the president is very excited about the bill signing that will take place at 3 o'clock this afternoon. You will hear from him more on that later, and we look forward to seeing you there, Sage. So thank you very, very much. Garrett, great to see you here today.
Thank you. On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza.
Okay, so there it is. So he's not committed to putting boots in Gaza, which I think we already have a whole bunch of military over there anyways. And he's also not committed to paying for it. What he's doing is just waking them up over there. Because literally, if he wanted to, it's just like a strong message to Iran that, hey, if we want, we can take it for ourselves. So let's work a deal and work this out. That's what Trump's doing. He's working. So it's borderline alarming to me. Like, especially, I'm going to call out Owen Schroyer and both Owen and Harrison Smith on how they're covering this. It's just bizarre to me. The way they pose everything, I can't tell if they're just trying to get clicks or create like frustration. Like a lot of times what influencers do, and I am the number one most skeptical person when it comes to influencers. I don't trust any of them, even though I'm obviously a fan. I'm trying to support them. I'm rooting for them. And I do promote them a lot, right? So they're like my favorite guys, the InfoWar guys. But the way people farm clicks, the way people is just, and I don't hate them for it. I don't throw stones, but like, even for example, a lot of these accounts you follow, they're literally just farming clicks. They'll ask you a question. Do you support President Trump? Signing this bill to get men out of women's sports, yes or no? And and so people will go on there and respond. And it's just like, and they don't respond. They don't even like their responses at all. It's purely engagement farming. And it's an epidemic Like in any realm, if you are a fantasy football guru and you follow a bunch of fantasy football channels, you see the same nonsense happening. If you're a crypto guy, which that's, is me, and I've been deep in the world where there's so much weird stuff that happens with influencers, and it's just gives me the EBGBs. They're clicking. They're trying to engage for clicks. It's like they're engaging to make money, and I don't fault them at all for it, because all influencers are trying to grow their following, their subscribers, and all that. But I've seen a lot of nonsense in the space, and the troubling thing is I'm talking about the good ones. Like even like a Tucker Carlson, who's also one of my favorites, or Ben Shapiro. And I get so weirded out, and it might just because I'm so distrusting of influencers and sort of the things they do, which I can expose some of it. Maybe I will someday, because I'm not wanting to throw stones. I still support them, and I'm like their most loyal people. I literally like every single video, subscribe, and I comment on every single one every single time on YouTube. I don't on Twitter because I want people to turn on the bell, and I don't want to be blowing up your feed every 5 seconds like people do, and it drives me crazy, but I still try and follow them, even though it's just bizarre sometimes. And on the whole, the way things are phrased sometimes, it gives me the EBGBs, because it's like, are you just trying to like spin something a certain way on purpose and create like sometimes I think these influencers, especially in the politics space, will say things that are kind of controversial or spin things a certain way in order to get fired up engagement, polarizing engagement. And I just can't stand it. The other big red flag I always get, especially with Alex Jones, who's kind of become my very favorite guy, it makes me laugh to even say that, honestly. But it just becomes increasingly disturbing how these influencers, like Alex Jones is literally the number one influencer in the world at this point. He's literally getting the most clicks, the most watch time. And so just stop for a second and think. So all the things that he spends about being hard up for money. So the narrative is, we've been persecuted. They took all our money. And so we're fighting this fight for you to save America, to save free speech, which is literally what I'm doing as well. It's like, it is my life 100% at this point, since I've been resurrected from the dead, literally when Trump got elected. And so the vision is the same, and he's so spot on. It's eerie to me. Now, I'm not saying 100% spot on, but it's like, I'm blown away, because you would think I've been a disciple of Alex Jones for 30 years or something when you listen to me, but I literally have never listened to him. I've obviously heard of him and seen bits and pieces, and I might have, like in my whole life before just a few weeks ago, watched one or two videos of Alex Jones and literally got weirded out. I remember he weirded me out, and I stopped listening. That's simple. And that was like several years ago. And so it's weird. I love him. He's literally my favorite guy, and I'm promoting him like crazy. I'm dedicating shows to him. I'm buying his stuff. I'm even promoting his products. Like, so I'm coming from the heart of like wanting to help and support. And that goes for all of them, Megyn Kelly and Trish Reagan and Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and whoever. Hello, one of my favorite guys, Charlie Kirk. Phenomenal. Candace Owens and just the PragerU, who's constantly just begging for money. And I get really weirded out because they've done some weird things, and I'm just always not always sure. But with Alex Jones especially, who's my favorite, the narrative of this, I'm this persecuted guy and I'm broke. Dude, there's no way in hell you can convince me that you're not making tens of millions of dollars a month. He is literally the best sales promoter on the planet Earth, is Alex Jones. And so people sign up for his VIP. People are ordering shit all the time. He's literally sells out of tons of his products all the time. Tons of people are supporting him constantly. He says it's 0.01%, or something, which I'm highly skeptical of. But even if that's true, he's getting tens of millions or hundreds of millions of views per day. So just do the math. He is raking it in. And then he wants to say this is just highly questionable shit, like he's never had $10 million in his bank account, he said. He said that 70% of his previous following doesn't even know that he's there. And so you got to push this out and support. Like, I literally watch him in all his spiel for an hour a day, even though I fast forward through it most of the time, but still it just it just happens. I listen to the spiel for an hour a day of his sales spiel because their show is like, I don't know, 9 hours, 10 hours long. And so there's no way in hell he's not making literally more money than what anybody else could possibly be making in the entire influencer space in the entire planet of Earth. Listen, like, hello? And so I get so weirded out, so much EBGB. And I honestly want to see transparency. Like, I want to see an accounting. You're telling me, he's telling us that he literally said it today, that his accounts are in the red. Are you kidding me? Your accounts are in the red? For real? He said that because the spiel is that he's had to pay apparently hundreds of millions of dollars, which I guess I believe that. And he even said that his lawyer is basically doing it essentially for free. The lawyer's only collecting the fees to pay his other lawyers for the thousands of hours of legal work that he's required. And I'm telling you, I get so weirded out by it, like super duper 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 weirded out. He's in the red. 70% of his followers don't even know that he still exists, apparently. He's never had $10 million in his bank account. And he just, like, really, you just expect us to believe that, like, blindly? I want an accounting. And I'm saying that as a brother, and he's my favorite guy, that I'm literally buying his shit and promoting it. And I'm, to be honest, the CMOS is actually, I think, for real. I think it's legit. That's the funny thing. I did not have my hopes up. And I've got the meat. The meat actually might be in the mailbox now. Got several months of it. I'm signed up monthly and for his stuff. All right. But it's like, man, and everybody I listen to, Charlie Kirk's also one of my favorites. And literally at least half of his show is commercials. Like, maybe more than half of his show is ads, commercials, and pitches. And it's like people farming for clicks And I've been deep in the influencer world. It just gets weird. And so I'm just so dedicated to never be that way. Not that I'm not at all against advertising, because that's literally the only way you can make money. So you have to make a living, and I'm not even against people making a lot of money on things. But Alex Jones has the strongest sales pitch any of us will ever have, and anybody on earth will ever have in the history of the world. No kidding. It's like the number one salesman on the earth is Alex Jones. Make no mistake about it. And there's no way in hell you're going to convince me otherwise. So it's like, my radar is always so up, so high. And that goes for everybody. That goes for Elon Musk. That goes for Donald Trump himself. And all they do is just keep proving themselves they're squeaky clean. I have a radar, laser-like radar on them. And the last thing any one of these influencer needs to do is go after Trump, literally saying, they said things like, I'm neutral on the Israel thing, but it's obvious most people are against this. This is a total disaster. Owen came out first thing right off the bat. I've been just on cloud nine. It's been amazing, all these things Trump's doing. But now I've come back down to earth. You know, he's like, the wind has just come out of the sails because of what Donald Trump just did. And the way that I almost decided, but there's like 10 hours of things I want to cover today. And it's not necessarily one of the things I wanted to cover, but I was literally just going to break down the way it was almost like a psyop. It was so weird. The way they pose things, saying things like he'll pose things in a certain, like frame things in a certain way about obviously being like anti-Israel, which is bizarre that it's like, it's bizarre to me. I'm not saying, like, some people, like Matt told me today that some people think this Benjamin Netanyahu is like the Antichrist or something, I guess. Okay. You know, I don't know if he's a great guy, so I don't know, but it was so bizarre. And then Owen today went on this long kind of like framing just to get to the point to say that Trump probably, like, we don't know what Trump's doing. This is obviously probably a play that Trump is doing to wake up Iran and get them to negotiate and bring them to the table and work peace. So it's like he said all these pretty heavy things against Trump and against Netanyahu, all just to come around and say, hey, it's probably just Trump working his magic. Nothing to see here. And it's like, why would you spend a whole segment on that? It was so weird. But I might be wrong. I mean, obviously they're in a camp of sort of being anti-Israel, but clearly nobody's pro Hamas and the terror and the evil. It is like some of the most, I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes. Some of the most atrocity and evil that I've ever even imagined happening over there in some areas. How about that? So anyways, that was a long rant. What's up, James? Okay. All right. Here we go. We'll talk more about that. The influencer space is troubling to me. It's hard to trust. Just getting information. So I'm trying to do research all day long and get to the bottom of things. Like, for example, Israel is perfect example, because that's the hardest one to actually get to the bottom of. You literally hear one person will say they'll say one thing about what's going on in Israel and in the Middle East, and then someone else that I respect will literally say the polar opposite. And it's like even people that are literally there, boots on the ground. And so here's one thing we always have to remember. Anytime we're trying to like deeply look into something, first of all, we don't ever want to talk about anything ever when we don't know what the hell we're talking about, which in this case, nobody knows what the hell's going on with Trump in the Middle East. Okay. Unless you're literally on the inside, like as one of Trump's advisor. Okay. So the translation should be there. Okay. You might have an opinion. I don't feel good about this. I really don't want us in there. I really hope we're not going to go in there and spend a bunch of money and go to war and just keep the whole thing going. The problem is we're already sucked into it as it is. So, and if we can't just leave, I mean, otherwise terror will just reign and it'll end up coming to us anyways. So what's the solution? No, who knows? But you're better off just saying, we're hoping for the best, Trump. We're hoping that we're not going into wars over there. We're not going to be spending a bunch of money over there. Well, Trump's already said he's not. Okay. Why do you actually think Netanyahu has some hold over Trump? But that's another just laughable thing to me. I think Netanyahu is like a booger in Trump's nose that he could just flick away if he wanted to. He's just like, so I saw everything totally different. And so even if we do fund Gaza and it'll probably work out and be the next Dubai or the next Singapore. Yeah. So whatever, and it'll work out. Like there's no reason. So, but even if you've got a really negative outlook on it, fine. Share your opinion. But the last thing we need to be doing right now with Trump under constant hellish attacks, I'm not saying we can still have real talk. We can still be critical of things Trump's doing, but it's weird when people are all of a sudden, oh, I was excited about Trump and now I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on. It's like, okay, really? That's a bizarre take. Okay. Just open your eyes and look what is going on would be my response. Like, okay, like I am still cautiously optimistic, but as influencers, so we have to remember that every single piece of information, even one of my favorite new guys, the Mike Benz guy, who has literally all the down low on USAID, that guy, the Mike Benz guy, he even just, he's got like a $5 a month thing you can sign up and do as private. It's like everybody is out there trying to get clicks for a reason. And I don't hate him for it or blame him for it. We just have to be aware of that when we're trying to look into something, oftentimes things are just there to engagement farm you and use you and get your money and get you to pay and Mike Benz would be at the top of my list to pay. I'm going to pay $5 a month, and I just haven't had the time yet. But make no mistake about it, I want to support him. I'm all for that. But just remember, he's like one of my most trusted guys, literally, especially regarding USAID, is this Mike Benz guy. So I want to support him. And we all should want to support Alex Jones, and because he is fighting for us, and PragerU. But it's like, whoo, believe me, I've been around this block for years and years and years and years, and it's weird. So there's little cabals going on of engagement farming, clicking, and people go a long ways and do a lot of crazy shit to get clicks and engagement from you. We have to remember that. And so we have to remember that when we're investigating matters as well. Because I could right now go on and say something crazy about Trump and have some weird, crazy take just to stir shit up. And then it's like inauthentic. I want what the people want for the love of God. And this is what I want to be. This is my vision. And this is my calling, is to be a person who's just real and raw and authentic. And I am anti to the core, the engagement farming stuff just for the sake of engagement farming. Like we see it in all everything. I think, in fantasy football I think Saquon Barkley is a horrible pick in the 3rd round even. He should go in the 5th round. What do you guys think? People were saying this. And then it spurs debate. And it just gets all kinds of hits in the fantasy football Twitter world, in the crypto world. I would see this. People just do this over and over and over and over and over again. They'll say, is crypto gaming here to stay? Yes or no? What do you think? And then people comments and a million comments and just debates. And then literally they don't respond or they don't even take the damn time to like. I have commented every day for years on some of these freaking influencers, and I give them grace, and they won't even like the damn comment. And then they just literally go to the next thing, and they'll do it sometimes 2 or 3 times a day just to engagement farm. And it becomes very clear and apparent that either they were just trying to get their confirmation bias, because they might comment once or twice, or even bother to like once or twice on this massive thread that literally just confirms their own already bias. Or most of the time what actually happens is literally no response. So if someone was authentically asking the question, do you guys think crypto gaming's here to stay? ? If it was an authentic question that they were asking, they would obviously engage with the tweet, right? But no, it's inauthentic and bullshit. I'm so sick of it. And all these influencers are just trying to be relevant. They're trying to be big. They're trying to be the next big thing. And I died to that almost a year ago now. It's almost been a whole year. Wow. It feels like 6 months ago or something, but it's like 10 months ago or so, 9 months ago. I completely died to it. Maybe 8 months ago. Because it's like, no, what I would think we long for is authentic people. That's why Joe Rogan's one of the biggest, because he's just like a real dude having a conversation, or at least is giving that impression. And I believe it. Like he's just being real. Right. So that's my vision and my calling. That's what we need. So be careful, even on data gathering things. If someone's posting data, you got to be careful, because again, what's the purpose? What's the heart behind it? Is it engagement farming or not? So we all trust nothing, trust no one, question everything, always, period, always. Everyone trust nothing. Okay. All right.
His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
He did not rule out American troops in Gaza last night. Are you doing that now?
I am saying that the president has not committed to that just yet. He has not made that commitment, and you know that.
And on the foreign partners, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis have already panned this plan. What foreign partners, if any, have expressed any interest in being part of it?
Well, the president has said he's been socialing this idea for quite some time. He's been thinking about this. He said in his remarks last night, this was not a decision or an announcement that he takes lightly. And the president has already spoken to the President al-Sisi. In fact, that was his first foreign leader call. He's meeting with the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, next week. He spoke with the King of Bahrain. He spoke with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And he has made it very clear, he's been very vocal, that he expects our partners in the region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, to accept Palestinian refugees temporarily so that we can rebuild their home. I'd like to show you some images of God.
Here's another perfect example of how convoluted this is. I read today something somewhere that said Saudi Arabia is really excited. Like the Saudi Arabian king is thrilled to work with Trump and is excited to bring peace and he's, excited about this. Then I literally read another piece like later on, and it's all convoluted, but I literally saw another piece of saying the exact opposite, that the Saudi Arabian king or whatever is completely against Trump and doesn't want to work with Trump at all. Like that's what we're dealing with here. It's like, what the hell's even going on? How can we really know and confirm and verify? It's like the hardest. The more I can just tell you, the more I try and get to the bottom of what's really going on, the more confused I get. It's weird with this whole Middle East. It used to be simpler. I used to be way more dialed in with Israel and the Middle East. But now I'm just, what is even going on? Just like with Russia and Ukraine. Now we're kind of finding out that we're the ones that sort of like perpetuated this war by provoking Russia and the UN. And it wasn't just this narrative of Russia attacking Ukraine because it's the next Stalin is Putin and he's just trying to kill everybody and rule the world and bring communism and he's a terrorist and all this nonsense that we heard, which apparently is looking like that was nonsense. We were psyoped to believe that about Putin. And now it's like, wait, is Ukraine kind of the ones with the puppet dictator ruling, trying to start this war, and then it just became a big money laundering scheme? Like, what the hell's even going on? Like, with information, it's wild. So I'm also committed to only speaking about what I know, and still always ears wide open to maybe I'm wrong, even on the things I know that I know that I know. But on the things that I know that I know that I know, it's almost impossible to prove it wrong. But I'm always open ears because the evidence is so overwhelming with certain things. Like the J6 hoax, for example, is overwhelmingly so much evidence, or that the election was rigged. The evidence is so overwhelming. Your head will spin for days just looking at all the evidence. It's literally your head will just keep spinning and spinning. And like, oh my God, there's just so much fraud. It just reeked with fraud galore. And there's endless evidence, endless evidence, just outright evidence, proof on every front, for example. So, okay.
Gaza that were taken. Fox News aired this. I mean, that is, as they put it, an apocalyptic scene in Gaza. This is an uninhabitable place for human beings. Do you really think that families can live their dream in a region that looks like this, with no running water, no electricity? And the special envoy to the president, Steve Witkoff, recently traveled to Gaza, as you all know, and he came back with images that he showed the president of the dire situation here. And the president made this decision with a humanitarian heart for all people in the region. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. Are any officials here preparing to fight Democratic lawmakers in the streets?
Absolutely not.
So
And thanks for the question.
Some elected Democrats are so steamed about DOGE. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver says we are at war. Ilhan Omar says we might actually see somebody get killed. And Chris Van Hollen says we have to fight this in the Congress.
This is great response. Like, she's just killing it as this press secretary. So and all that's true. They literally said, this is war. They are literally just trying to stir up violence in the streets to take back our country that Elon Musk just stole away. Oh my God. With 100% false narratives and hysteria, literally. So, and it's complete nonsense. And then this is her response. Boom.
We have to fight this in the streets. So what now?
And may I just point out, if you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders. And frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about, because President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people to make this government more efficient. He campaigned across this country with Elon Musk, vowing that Elon was going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, and the two of them, with a great team around them, were going to look at the receipts of this federal government and ensure it's accountable to American taxpayers. That's all that is happening here. And for Democrat officials to incite violence and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
It sounds like
mic drop. Boom. Like, she's just absolutely flawless.
something that they're most concerned about is DOGE engineers with access to Treasury systems. Can you clarify? Do the DOGE engineers have read-only access in these systems? So they are not allowed to write new code. They are not. Okay.
No.
And then one more thing. NBC is reporting that some of the illegal immigrants that we've seen rounded up and arrested are not being deported. They're being released with ankle or wrist monitoring devices, or they have to check in on the phone. So is the administration arresting more people than you have room for?
I have seen the reports, and I'm glad you brought it up because we want to address it. There have been a total of 461 illegal aliens. This is of this morning when I got this information from DHS that have been released from custody of the more than 8,000 that have been arrested since President Trump was inaugurated. It's less than 6%. And there are reasons for their release. Some of the factors include a lack of significant likelihood of removal in the foreseeable future, lack of detention availability, which is something this president and this administration has been incredibly vocal about. We are doing everything we can to deport and detain illegal immigrants, but we need Congress's help to increase funding for Border Patrol and for ICE to increase detention capability in our facilities. And then other serious medical conditions have also been the reasons for some of the release of these individuals. But none of them have final deportation orders. Many of them are probably contesting their immigration status. I'd refer you to DHS for more details, but I did get that information because I knew it'd be a question. So thank you. Sure. Yes.
The president and you here again today they're given the devastation. You think Palestinians have no choice but to leave Gaza and go elsewhere. But Palestinians say this is their home. They don't want to go. The president last night said he's willing to use the military if necessary. Is the U.S. prepared to remove Palestinians from Gaza by force?
The president is prepared to rebuild Gaza for Palestinians and all people in the region, peace-loving people who want real economic development and opportunity in the region. This is a region that has been controlled by Iranian-backed terrorists, Hamas, who have brutalized not just Israelis, but Palestinians too. It is because of Hamas that you see those images on that screen, that Gaza has become a demolition site because Hamas launched that brutal attack on Israel on October the 7th. And so again, I would stress, President Trump wants...
Okay, now it is a little bizarre that I think what most people would say is that Netanyahu was out of line the way he just obliterated the Gaza Strip after the October 7th event. Some people even go as far as to say that Netanyahu let that happen on purpose and let that mass murder of his own people happen on purpose to give him an excuse to go just obliterate them. I don't know, man. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and so they're certainly not putting any pressure on Netanyahu about that. I would kind of like to know. So part of this is like they're trying to work deals, and so they're purposefully kind of putting out a narrative because they're still trying to work a deal with Iran and Jordan and Turkey and whatever over there. So they're trying to put pressure on them. But I honestly don't know on all that. I've heard both sides a lot, and it's like I'm still trying to feel my way through that situation.
To ensure that this can be a place where all people.
And yes, Melinda, that's so true. She has just been phenomenal. Rocks, all of them have been. Pam Bondi already just boom right out the gate today, and Christy Nome and Tom Holman, they're all just like freaking rock stars. And the dude, who's the bald guy that's also a press guy, just crushing it everywhere they go.
People can live in peace. He is a peacemaker in chief. He made that very clear in his first term. And as for how that will be accomplished, the president and his team are talking with our allies in the region to consider next steps.
But should the American people be prepared to see U.S. military on the ground fighting a ground war against Hamas?
Again, the president has not committed to U.S. troops in the region.
But it is an option.
I have said that the president has not committed to that yet. Sure.
If I could just follow up on that, though, why not rule out the idea of committing U.S. troops? This has been a long-standing argument that the president has made really over the last decade or so, talking about endless wars are not something the U.S. wants. Why not rule out?
Because I think the president is very good when he's making deals and negotiating, not to rule out anything, because he wants to preserve that leverage in negotiations. And so I think that's what he's doing here. Mary.
Follow up on that, though. He also said that everyone loves this plan. He said that in the Oval Office this morning.
Sure.
In fact, the
why Kennedy talks that way is because he had to get a part of his throat removed, or a major operation on his throat or something like that. Yeah, it sometimes can just be rough listening to him. It's like he's straining to talk. It's like, oh, I'm straining with him. I like feel the straining. Yeah. Yeah, he's a must. Like, he's one of the most important guys. We got to get in. It not only will expose the corruption, he's going to just expose the corruption. And the biggest thing is, this is so important in our medical and science world. Free speech. We cannot be censoring scientists and doctors from their findings and their research. Literally, we've been censoring scientists and doctors for decades now who disagree with a narrative, and it's like an oligarchy. It's like the worst too. And the universities do this. It's evil as hell. It is like downright demonic. They will just literally pull a license so a doctor can't be a doctor and operate as a practice because he literally did research and came to a different conclusion with their mainstream agreed upon science and narrative. It's evil. We got to get it the hell out. It's literally anti-science. The 101 foundational piece of science is that science, you test and retest. Fact, you test, and science is always invites, it fosters a realm of testing and retesting and reconfirming the science. Period. I don't care how firm you think the science is. That's really the biggest reason why we just need Bobby Kennedy in there, is because he's going to free up all the doctors to have debate and discourse and let the science prove itself. Numero uno. Numero dos is the food is really bad. Our food is bad. I want to cover all these things. I literally have hundreds of hours of videos I want to cover. And it's like, and that's a big one of them, is the food concerns. And I'm not saying, like I did with the vaccines, I'm not saying I don't, what the hell do I know about vaccines? All I do know is that like tens of thousands of doctors and scientists have huge concerns about the vaccines and are not saying that the science is final and garbage like that, that the absolute nonsense behind that is mind-blowing. You know something's wrong when they're saying the science is final. The vaccines are safe. Are you kidding me? Like, and it's a psyop. We've been psyoped. So right away, nope, I don't believe you. I'm going to believe the anti-vaxxers now because you're saying that. It's like, let's just say someone was antibiotic. Antibiotics don't work and they're killing us. Well, why is nobody saying that? Why is that not even ever a discussion? Because the science actually is just clear. And we're perfectly okay with someone saying that because we can just prove that antibiotics are very phenomenal. Duh. We can. So we're not afraid of that. We don't have to censor that for misinformation. If some doctor comes out of the woodworks and say antibiotics are killing the world. Oh, really? Well, let's test that. Let's debate that. And then that's an easy one. No censoring speech. It's evil, ever. It's never, ever, ever, ever good. It never, ever, ever, ever supports democracy and protects democracy to censor speech. You know immediately, nope, sorry, that's not going to work on us anymore. Get out of here, you Marxist, fascist, evil MFers. It absolutely not. Even that was one point, valid point, that Harrison Smith made about the anti-Semitism and God, my brain, you guys, is shutting down. I'm just fading. Anti-Semitism bill or like executive order that Trump signed. He made a good point. Like, I think he signed that for a reason, though, because of violence. But the bill is essentially preventing free speech. It's like if you're a true First Amendment, I have the right to be an anti-Semite or whatever. It's a good point. Like, we need to be able to criticize all things, but what the picture is behind this executive order obviously is violence against Jews. Obviously. Now, okay, that might be a psyop. They made a big deal about that, Harrison Smith did, and he did make a valid point, but I don't know. Context is king here. It's one thing to protest, but we know kind of what's going on here with we've seen it happen in Europe with all the pro-Palestine stuff. So obviously Donald Trump isn't, trying to infringe on our free speech. So you can criticize the bill. That's fine. But valid point taken. It's like they get real heavy about it. It's like super heavy that Trump did this. Oh my God. Like, okay. I don't know. Like this whole weird vibe comes over you when you're listening. Okay. Anyways, let's go.
Yep. The Deputy Prime Minister of Jordan called it a declaration of war on the Arab people. So how does he square the fact that even some Republicans on the Hill are objecting to this or questioning this? How does he square the fact saying everyone loves this?
Well, King Abdullah of Jordan will be here next week, so I can provide you more context.
Did he call it? Is that true? I'm skeptical. Did he just call this a declaration of war? Probably not. But maybe. Probably not. She's like, he'll be here next week. We'll talk about it. Is it this gruesome declaration of war? It's called psyops. All these things are psyops. And that's kind of where I was going with Owen and Harrison. It's almost like they're trying to pull a psyop here on Trump. It's like they're planting these seeds. That's where it's like weird. They could literally make their exact same point they're trying to make without it just being weird. The way they're doing it is literally reminding me of how the left-wing media operates. Okay. Anyways. All right.
context on the conversations he will have directly with the president of the United States after that meeting. And I would just point out that there's been a lot of leaders and officials all.
And again, I say that with Harrison Smith and Owen literally being two of my very favorite top guys that I listen to every single day without fail. Like, and literally like every single tweet that they tweet and comment on some of them. So that's where I'm coming from here, by the way.
All around the world who have doubted, I suppose, the deal-making ability of President Trump. You heard the Panama leader.
And by the way, let me just say this too. I literally made a video just for Owen last night and posted it in response to his tweet. What do you guys think of this? This is the engagement farming that I was talking about. I made a video last night talking about my thoughts on the Israel thing that Trump just did. And then I even clipped apart and did 2 responses on 2 of his tweets. And literally just not a like, no response. Just doesn't, it's like, that's when you know. And the one response that someone gave a half of a sentence kind of bashing Trump, that obviously Tom, Dick, and Harry, we got Ted Mack amateur hour happening here. Obviously Trump's like bending the knee to Israel. And then that's the one thing that Harrison Smith comments on the tweet, literally ignores the host of other responses and conversations. And I literally made a video just for him and said that. And it's like, and I'm used to this though, even with guys like that. This is where this weird cabal of influencers can be. Even the guys that I love and support and I'm all for it. And I'm literally commenting like on Benny Johnson, every single video that he ever does, like, comment, sometimes multiple comments, never. And same with Twitter, sometimes even retweets, and I'm shouting them out and I'm giving them props and I'm doing videos promoting I'm even promoting their products. Literally never even a like or a response. Well, they're doing that on purpose because this is just my experience. And I might be a little cynical here. They don't want to draw attention to anyone away from their own. And that's where it's like, I don't even care though anymore. It used to really bother me. I'm just calling it out for what it is right now. I'll never let it get to me again. But you have to acknowledge that most influencers out there in the world today are there to get clicks, and it's perfectly understandable. They're there to get clicks and farm clicks and farm their influence. It's just like 24/7. They're spending more time trying to do that than they are even researching a lot of times what it is they're doing. Yeah. Kennedy might kill ducks. How about somebody said, did he like cut up a whale with a chainsaw? That's what I heard. Someone said Kennedy was out there cutting up whales with a chainsaw. Did he do that sometime like decades ago or something? I don't even know sometimes. Trust nothing, verify, recheck, re-verify. That's what you have to do. That's why I'm oftentimes getting 5 tweets a minute on average. It comes down certain times of the day. So I'll have to actually look into how many tweets I actually get per day and then do the math and just research, cross-check, double-check. Look at what the other side is always saying. Always know both sides thoroughly. You always want to know thoroughly both sides of every argument before you have an opinion on anything. That's just being responsible. One of my biggest pet peeves is Ted Mack amateur hours going on with a lot of it. And I still like him and respect him and listen to him. And what I hate is malicious spreading of lies. And that's the evil that we're dealing with. I don't think most of the news media organizations is a whole different level of weird, corrupt evil. And it's a weird world, man. The news media world is a very weird world, but I can speak knowing some of the top influencers out there very, very well that it's just weird. There's a lot of gray, questionable, and I would rather be a nobody and never make a dime than to fall into that slavery. It's slavery, being this engagement farming nonsense that happens with literally my favorite people in the space. Okay.
They're saying that he would not agree to some of the concessions that he has now made because of Secretary Rubio's visit. You had the Colombian president saying he wouldn't accept flights of Colombian illegal nationals who have entered into our country illegally, and those flights are underway. So actions speak louder than words. Dasha.
That was the response to, we're in Canada. He threw on a tariff in Canada. That worked out, even though the lefty media and everybody was freaking out. Oh my God, these tariffs. And even Trump supporters were like, oh my God, the tariffs are going to raise the prices of things. And it's like, okay, nope, we lifted the tariffs. Trump's just working it. Guys, chill. You don't know what's going on. Let Trump, let it play out. I'm not saying not to question anything he's doing. It's not at all what I'll be the first to do it. But there's like a way to do it. And then there's a way to like sow emotion and clicks and debate. And it's like a calculated, let me spin this a certain way. And I honestly, I hate it, despise it. It is my mission to be a different type of influencer, and it's a calling. Honestly, it's a calling.
You said the president has been working on this idea for a while behind the scenes now. Is there a written plan based on the president's proposal for Gaza? And if so, when was it drafted and who had a hand in that?
The plan was written in the president's remarks last night as he revealed it to the world and to the American people, and his team are continuing to be engaged on this effort. I saw the National Security Advisor this morning. He has a very busy day of calls, and they will, again, continue to engage with our partners. That includes Steve Witkoff as well. Mary.
2 questions for you on the news of the day. So how is today's executive order going to impact the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles? For example, would a man who thinks that he's a transgender woman be allowed to compete as a female on U.S. soil?
It's a very good question. And the president has actually mentioned this, that he does expect the Olympic Committee and the NCAA to no longer allow men to compete in women's sports. And I think the president, with the signing of his pen, starts a very public pressure campaign on these organizations to do the right thing for women and for girls across the country. Again, this is an incredibly popular position. There have been many notable female athletes.
Yeah, dumbasses. Men aren't competing in women's Olympic sports. And the only reason why people are pushing for that in the first place is probably because they're paid by USAID to try and destabilize Trump. They don't even give a damn about these trans people anyways.
Who have had the courage to speak out against some very powerful institutions in this country. They deserve to have a voice and a say. The president is bringing their voice to the highest level at the White House this afternoon, and he expects these organizations to comply with this federal executive order that he'll be signing today.
Thank you. And one more on media coverage of this executive order and the topic in general. What's the White House's view of framing that calls men transgender females, or similar rhetoric coming from organizations like the ACLU and GLAAD?
Well, it's been very clear. The policy of this administration is that there are only 2 sexes, male and female. Pretty simple. Brian Glenn.
Yes. USAID has gotten a lot of attention in the last couple of days with some of these bizarre things that we've been.
Here it is. USAID calling it out. Here she goes. This is good.
Taxpayers have been funding. Now it looks like there are a couple media outlets that have been dragged into this conversation as far as USAID funding as well. Does the president have any comment on that?
Politico.
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room.
Yeah, Politico. And it's pretty damning, like not just a little bit damning. Call it out, baby.
And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayer.
No, it's way more than 8. Because we also saw NASA was doing it. Who else is doing it? Elon Musk is saying 20% of all legacy media in America is coming through our tax dollars through nonsense and evil BS government spending waste that is completely sheltered from the American people, kept secret, kept in the dark. They don't want it in the light. It's all coming to light. What's hidden in darkness will be made known in the light, baby. Let's go.
Dime will no longer be happening. The DOGE team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
What about Elon Musk don't you like? Is it obviously the narratives are he's a billionaire and he's overthrown our government. So you don't like Elon Musk. You don't trust him. What has Elon done that we shouldn't trust him? He's literally done exactly what he's gone above and beyond what we could have ever hoped or imagined. And literally what Elon Musk is doing is literally the number one thing that we could have hoped for, which is this. Our government, we're going to know where every single dollar goes that our government spends. We're going to know all the corruption. It's going to be exposed. We want transparency. We want to know where our tax dollars are going. We want to know that they're not going to fund Politico. And we want to know that it's not going to fund cartels and human sex traffickings and create coups and destabilize nations to put in dictators and overthrow governments all over the world. That's literally been going on. That's literally what's been happening. So I'll tell you who wants to put chips in our brains is Bill Gates. You know, it's not Elon Musk. So that's my take. My radar's always up. They're wanting to psyop you into thinking these vaccines that literally will be covering this. They've already invented these microscopic nanonites that can go in a vaccine and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And it could be a good thing, or it could be they could literally use it to control us or kill us, which I don't think anybody from this generation anyways will ever really want that. I'm sure it might come. Some people will want that, but for it to be forced, it was Fauci, Gates, and the cabal and all that was wanting to force that on us. Musk is not doing that nonsense. Where did you hear that? I want proof. I've never heard Musk say he wants to put chips in our brain. Yeah, and I would say don't trust anyone. Who do you trust fully? Susan, I don't trust anybody. I just look at what people do. You look at their actions. As far as what Trump's done has been beyond what we could have even hoped or imagined. What Elon Musk is doing is literally Christmas every 5 seconds of the day as he's exposing, making transparent. He's literally creating systems so we know where every single tax dollar is going. And the goal is to create systems where we literally know in real time where every single dollar is being spent. Do you want that? Yeah. Don't trust me. I literally don't even trust my best friend. Like, I don't trust anyone. That's smart, Susan. Trust but verify. You cannot trust anybody in this world we live in, unfortunately. Saying that is I'm like the biggest skeptical person alive, probably. Believe it or not, Susan, I'm probably more skeptical than you are. But I am completely blown away by what both Trump and Musk are doing. They are doing a million times better than what I could have hoped. I don't trust Musk. I'm just looking at what he's doing. They're literally in real time exposing everything the government's been doing with our money. He's doing it for free. He's not doing it for a paycheck. Like we've literally, here's another reason. Look what we have on Twitter. If it wasn't for Elon Musk, we would not have the First Amendment. It would be full-blown Nazi camps. Like the J6 prisoners would be in jail forever because that was a hoax, provable, unequivocally factual. But he literally bought Twitter to free speech so that anybody can go and have dialogue and debate. Just for that alone, he's blown my mind. I was super skeptical. It took like 2 years for me just to kind of see it play out. Period. You bet. Peace out, Susan.
Thank you. I'd like to give some love to the back row. I've heard that unfortunately they haven't been called on in years past. So Reagan, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Caroline. The WHA announced that comedian Amber Ruffin, who has called the president a toddler with his pants pulled down, will be the entertainment for this year's Correspondents' Dinner. Does the White House have a reaction to this choice, and will the president be attending the dinner this year?
Certainly an interesting choice. I have the president's invitation on my desk. I have the invitation for myself on my desk as well. Haven't talked to the president about it. When he makes his decision, I will let you all know. But definitely an interesting choice of the comedian. I'll talk to the boss about it and see what we decide. Sure, go ahead.
In the back,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
Appreciate it. On the executive order set to be signed today, you said that this will be enforced. Can you spell out for schools and the public how exactly the administration plans to enforce this, even at a local level? And on top of that, there are human rights groups who say that this could expose kids to discrimination. What is your response to that?
I think kids have already been exposed to discrimination, especially young women and girls who have been forced to shower in locker rooms with biological men, who have been forced to compete on playing fields with biological men, which is incredibly unfair and unsafe. And again, an incredibly unpopular policy with the American people. As for the actions that this executive order takes, I already laid those out at the beginning of the briefing. I'm happy to give you a copy of this fact sheet so you can let your audiences across the country know.
Message to schools who don't comply with this.
They should, because it's going to be federal law in about an hour and a half. So your colleague to your right, to my
Thanks,
left.
Caroline.
Yes.
Taylor with Spectrum News. You talked a bit about DOGE. Elon Musk is currently...
I think the message to schools who don't want to obey that rule is FO or FAFO. F around, find out. Just like Pam Bondi said, they still want to do their sanctuary cities. Well, no more government funding. F around, find out. Let's go.
Currently a, quote, special government employee who also owns companies that have billions of dollars in federal contracts. You said earlier this week that he has abided by all applicable federal laws, but what steps is the Trump administration taking to address that conflict of interest?
The president was already asked and answered this question this week, and he said if Elon Musk comes across a conflict of interest with the contracts and the funding that DOGE is overseeing, then Elon will excuse himself from those contracts. And he has, again, abided by all applicable laws. In the back left, go ahead.
Trade advisor Peter Navarro, when asked about the External Revenue Service today, said, quote, we're going to collect a lot of tariff revenues. We're going to get tax cuts out of it. Is it the official position of the White House that tariffs will lower taxes for Americans?
The president has always been clear that he believes tariffs are a tax on foreign nations, and he's committed to cutting taxes for the American people here at home. He also believes tariffs are a great revenue raiser for this country, and that's exactly why he has committed to the creation of the External Revenue Service, which I think is a phenomenal idea. We'll just go down the whole row. Go ahead.
Tom Bateman with the BBC. Can you confirm that under the president's plans for Gaza, any and all Palestinians who want to stay in Gaza on their land will be allowed to do so?
I can confirm that the president is committed to rebuilding Gaza and to temporarily relocating those who are there, because as I've showed you repeatedly, it is a demolition site. There is no running water. There is no electricity. The president wants these individuals to live in peace. He is committed to doing that with this very bold new plan, and we will continue to keep you apprised of updates as we receive them.
That's not an answer.
Yes, go ahead.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So now that the President Trump's policies are starting to take shape, how long will it take to cycle through and get some of the actual prices that Americans are paying to come down?
Prices at the store and at the grocery pump across the board, sure. Well, the president is doing everything he can, obviously, to reduce the cost of living crisis in this country as quickly as possible. That's why he signed a litany of executive orders across the board in the first couple of weeks here. He declared a national energy emergency. He committed to cutting 10 regulations for every new one on the book. As you know, working for a Fox Business-related outlet, deregulation and energy independence are huge drivers.
Yep. The regulations spending last year was $1.9 trillion on just bureaucratic BS regulations.
Of reducing inflation in this country. And I think Americans can be assured by the results President Trump had in his first term, when again, inflation was 1.4% when he left office.
Months, or is it a year? And will Americans have the patience to wait for it?
I don't have a timeline, but the president is doing everything that he possibly can to reduce cost of living for Americans at home. Phil Wegman.
Thank you. Is it worth risking the life of a single U.S. Marine to turn the Gaza Strip into the Riviera of the Middle East?
Phil, I'm not sure why you're asking me that question, because I've already said the president has not committed to sending Marines or any boots on the ground in Gaza. We'll bring it to the front row.
Possibility?
Good to see you again here in the front row, Caroline. Two things. On today's announcement, Title IX, if he scales back the education department or moves to shut it down entirely, what entity will enforce Title IX?
As of now, this will be enforced through education, through Title IX. As if the abolishment of the Department of Education continues, which, as the president said yesterday, it's something his team is looking at and considering. It's something he talked a lot about on the campaign trail. Then, of course, we will look at additional maneuvers to ensure that these very important policies can be implemented.
Okay, so the education abolishment thing's still on the table. Title IX.
The president talked about it yesterday in the Oval Office, and he has good reason to talk about it. I mean, look, our education system is failing students in this country. The nation's report card, I brought it up in my remarks last week, it shows that fourth graders are not reading at the level they should. I believe it was 40% of them are proficient in reading. As the mother of a child, I want an education system that helps my child read and write, teaches him math, nothing else in the classroom. And the president is wholeheartedly committed to we can make academia great again in this country. Deanna.
Oh, thanks, Caroline. Does the president, is he looking at offering anything to these Arab countries that take in Palestinians? Is he willing to give them anything in return? And secondly, when the president announced his taking over Gaza policy yesterday, was Netanyahu aware of this? And what was his reaction when Trump presented that idea to him?
I won't get ahead of the president's discussions or negotiations on your first question about what would be offered. I think the president's made it clear that he expects these nations in the region to step up and to accept Palestinian refugees who will be temporarily relocated for the rebuilding of Gaza. As for whether Prime Minister Netanyahu was aware before the president's remarks, he was indeed. I wasn't present for that reaction. But again, this is something the president has been socializing and thinking about for quite some time. Nick, good to see you. Jordan, sorry.
Thank you, Caroline. So Secretary Hexet announced yesterday that Army recruiting levels have reached 12-year highs in December, 15-year highs in January. What is making young people want to serve the military under the Trump administration, and how does that contrast to Biden's failure consistently to meet recruiting average? Does DEI President Trump's anti-DEI agenda play a role in this?
First of all, the recruitment level for all branches of our military are at crisis levels, and it serves as a national security risk that our military branches are not fully staffed to where they need to be. And I do believe it's a culture problem within these institutions that the president is very much committed to fixing, as emphasized by the executive orders he has signed to root DEI out of the military. And I think when young men and women who are honorably signing up to serve in our nation's military see somebody like Pete Hegseth, the new Secretary of Defense, who is a proven warfighter, who risked his life in battle for this country, who understands what it means to deploy and to defend the Constitution and your nation abroad and to put your life on the line. When they see a leader like that, and a leader like President Trump, who is committed to peace through strength, that's very inspiring. And we look forward to seeing those recruitment numbers and retention numbers skyrocketing over the next 4 years. And I know Pete Hegseth is committed to increasing recruitment at all branches of the military. I'll defer you to the Department of Defense on exactly what he plans to implement. Jeff.
Thanks very much. Two questions. One, the president yesterday used the word permanent for permanently resettled Palestinians. I hear you saying temporarily today. Is that a shift or a specific change that you want to highlight? And my second question is, yesterday he spoke about the U.S. owning Gaza. Who owns Gaza now, and how would the U.S. acquire ownership?
Well, Gaza is currently run by Iranian-backed terrorists in the Middle East, Hamas, who we all agree, I think everybody in the region agrees, that can no longer stand. Just look at the events of October 7th and the events since. And the president, again, is committed to rebuilding the region for all people who want to return to it once it is no longer a demolition site. And it's a place where people can actually live and thrive in harmony, as he said last night, his words, not mine. Daniel.
Permanent versus temporarily resettle?
The president has made it clear that they need to be temporarily relocated out of Gaza for the rebuilding of this effort. Again, it's a demolition site right now. It's not a livable place for any human being. And I think it's actually quite evil to suggest that people should live in such dire conditions. Daniel.
Thank you so much. The daily guidance says that the president will be meeting with a pair of governors today, Governor Abbott of Texas and Governor Newsom of California. It comes after the president took executive action to turn the water back on in California. Billions of gallons are flowing out. What can you tell us about the two meetings and the importance of President Trump's actions to help people in California?
Sure. Those meetings will be taking place shortly. So
I
I'll
still plan on covering the California nonsense. There's a lot in the land of fruits and nuts that we'll be covering.
get out of here to get to those meetings. We can always provide you a readout, as we always do. We try to be very transparent about what the president is doing in the Oval Office. Perhaps he'll even call you in to join him. We never know around here, as you all know. But Governor Abbott is obviously a great friend and an ally to the president. He has been on the front lines of the border crisis in this country. And as for Governor Gavin Newsom, well, the president is willing to work with anybody from blue states or red states to do what's best for the American people. And the president really enjoyed his trip to Pacific Palisades last week. He felt very inspired by the frustration of the residents there. And he has been wholeheartedly committed to ensuring that the water is flowing in California to prevent these wildfires, and also that people have access to their properties. And he has continued to apply tremendous pressure to Gavin Newsom and also the Los Angeles mayor to allow private residents and property owners to access their property. He believes that's their right to do so, and they should be able to do it. And one more thing before I wrap up, because I do want to get to these meetings and I will see you all at the EO signing later this afternoon. I would just say that you brought to mind California and North Carolina, who continue to be on our hearts, and the president and this administration are committed to ensuring that these individuals get the funding that they need. And I would just say a strong message to Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you. Democrats are outraged that the American people want to be, they want their taxpayers going to good uses, not stuff like this. But then they're very quiet about the fact that there are still North Carolinians and people in California who have lost everything. And in the last 4 years, this federal government did nothing to help them. This president will continue to put Americans first. And I think the successes of this week so far speak to that. And it's only Wednesday. So I'll see you guys later this week, and we'll see you this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Let's go. Okay. One thing I want to look at, I'm completely brain dead, but I want to look at this PragerU video with this gal that was the ESPN gal. Yeah. Whoa, it's long. I thought there was a shorter version. How Sage Steele took on ESPN, sued Disney, and reclaimed her life. I bet this is wild. Because I used to like her. I used to watch ESPN, which has become insane. And so I'm just done. I'm done with the NFL and ESPN because I just can't anymore with them. So but I don't want to, and so she is now, I didn't fully understand. Is she working for a news station now? Or is she working like at the White House now? I missed that.
This shy kid who just wanted to talk about sports for a living sue the Walt Disney Company and ESPN to stand up for freedom of speech and First Amendment rights. Like, I don't know how that happened. God. 100% God.
When you do the right thing, you suddenly have more hours in the day. It's really unbelievable.
The reason I filed the damn lawsuit is because I want these companies to know that we will no longer accept it.
Do you think America is a racist country? Is it?
I get so mad when people say that. You can be a girl today, a boy tomorrow, and a cat on Thursday, right? That's fine. But I couldn't be a conservative with my gender and my skin color. Too many people feel scared to death of their companies. Like, I get it, but just know that you are not alone.
Sage Steele, let's have the conversation we had in the green room right here in front of the whole world.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. So for those who are living under a rock and don't know about your story, I want to just get right into it. And I actually think it's going to be so fascinating to walk through your story now, several years later, where you can really talk about everything. Mm-hmm. There's another little Sage Steele somewhere out there who is probably going through what you have gone through and has no guidance, has little courage, and doesn't really have a role model to follow to know things will be okay. And boy, you are okay. You are okay. And so I want the little Sage Steele, and I'm sure they're both women and men, to hear what you went through and how you came out of it an absolute warrior.
Oh gosh. First of all, thank you. And thank you for inviting me. Conversations are what life is about for me today. It's always what it's been like, but I was never really allowed to. You know, when you work on the live news show, I was at SportsCenter for all those years, and it's like, go. And so it's been awesome to be able to do it on my own show and to be able to do this with you. Like, I never thought I'd be allowed to. This is a big deal, to be able to actually talk, forget about cameras and just go. I ended up so crazy. How did this shy kid, believe it or not, and I still feel that way sometimes, I get shy and I have to like flip the switch. How did this shy kid who just wanted to talk about sports for a living and tell stories of great athletes and their why sue the Walt Disney Company and ESPN to stand up for her freedom of speech and First Amendment rights? Like, I don't know how that happened. God. 100% God. I am learning now the why. And I think that's been really important in the last, I've been gone from ESPN for like 15, 16 months after 16 and a half years there, which was my ultimate dream when I was a little girl to work there. And I did it. I did it at the highest level. And I'm literally so grateful for every moment there. I wouldn't change any of it. But I thought just innocently, gave my opinion on the COVID vaccine mandate. Not the vaccine itself, but being forced to get the shot to keep my job. This is in September, October 2021. So it's been 3 years since I said what I said and then got punished for it.
What was the punishment when you said, first of all, what did you say exactly? I'm sure you've memorized it.
I kind of have. I was on a podcast with Jay Cutler, for the non-sports fans out there, the former Bears and Broncos quarterback who retired and started a new podcast. And his publicist had said, hey, he's done 2 shows. He wants to have a woman come on with Jay. I was like, sure. I talked about him a lot on SportsCenter, did a bunch of highlights or lowlights of his. And sure, I'll come on. Seems like a nice guy. And he was prepared. He did his homework on things that I had spoken about in the past that maybe weren't a big deal then, but were more so in 2021. And I had literally just come from getting the vaccine that I had to get to keep my job. And I was devastated that I was forced to do something to my body that I didn't want to. And so I was running hot. And in hindsight, like I literally came from getting the shot that I cried during to running home, flip up my laptop and open it up and get on a Zoom. And I had a short sleeve shirt on with a Band-Aid on my shoulder and literally didn't even really realize it because I was in a rush. He's like, what's that Band-Aid?
Oh, he asked you during the show.
Oh.
What's the Band-Aid for?
Well, I got my shot today. I didn't want to do it. I work for a company that mandates it, and I had until September 30th to get it done or I'm out. I respect everyone's decision. I really do. But to mandate it is sick.
And then what?
I was like, I just kind of laughed because I thought, oh.
Yeah, baby. It is awful. All right. I just wanted to get a little taste of that. Love you guys. I'm going to wrap up. I was all over the place. Still trying to figure out how I'm going to be going about everything. One step at a time here. Love you guys. Peace out. Trust nothing. Verify everything, baby.